streaming. Let's see how this works. I'm very nervous.
Why are you nervous? Don't be
I don't
nervous.
know, dude, because I fuck shit up.
Stop it. Stop it.
So how do I find myself live now? My channel.
Oh, I got it. Here. We are live now, so you know.
Oh, you know what I need to do is I need to maximize this window. My channel.
I hear myself yelling at you to stop being nervous. We are live.
I need to mute it.
Okay. Do you want the link? I hear myself yelling at.
There you go.
It's a bit of a rough start, guys, but we got this.
Yeah.
We'll get started.
As I get used to it. I guess what I'm gonna have to do.
Here's the link, and I'm gonna post it on Tweetars. Ooh, I like the tail you chose. This is beautiful.
Like, it's cool, right? Because you can see both of us at the same time now.
Yeah, that is cool.
Which I like a lot better.
That.
I'm very new at this. So.
You can see the text chat too, so if anybody was to join the call, they could like type in there and people could see it. For like other times if you want to do something like that.
Yeah, I need to actually open my phone and join the chat that way.
I'm gonna post this in the AIU Discord and on Twitter.
That's not working on the stream because you full screened it. What? Is it not supposed to? Well, how am I supposed to do that then? Here, how's that? Does that work? Dude.
Let me see. I'm loading it up. It's two full screened, and I see you and like half of me. Maybe not even half, like 3/4 of me. Oh, there you go. That's better. Except
but it shows my friend list on the side and shit.
Yeah, I can still see your friend list and stuff, but you've got me there completely. Is there a way to close the friends list?
Yeah, I tried to maximize it, but Chris said maximizing the window does not work. So.
Yeah, I guess that's the best you could do on this.
I don't like that though. What is the fucking point? Hold on, let's see. That got it. That's not working on this. Oh my god, I'm trying to like figure this shit out, man. Okay.
Why it no work? Why it no work?
Because I'm retarded, that's why.
No, it's just the way Discord is. I don't think you can do that.
So it's just gonna show all my shit on the side here then.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way to close that. The sidebar.
I'm like a retarded.
Let me see. Privacy authorized connections. Overlay.
Overlay.
Display names only while sleeping. Never. No, I don't think that would be it. Display users.
Dude, that's fine. Whatever.
Oh no, this is for gameplay.
What is anybody gonna see? It's just my friends list over here.
Yeah.
It's all good.
You have friends. That's all anybody sees.
Cool. Okay, let me open the chat.
Yay!
Yay! So today, Aimee, adjust the properties. You can edit how you see things if you change it on OBS directly. Oh,
yo, that's my property. Yo, get off my property.
Let's see. Properties. Window match priority. What am I doing here? So I feel like I shouldn't even touch this. I'm gonna fuck it up right now. Is it even working? It's all black now. Fuck!
Is it? Let me see.
Yeah, what I do.
I don't see it all, but I'm not. I'm a little behind. Move forward. Yeah, it's all black now.
God damn it. You know why?
What have you done? What did you do?
I don't fucking know, dude. I don't know.
She said you could full screen the video. Yeah, but when she does that, Dan, it only shows her.
Yeah,
it doesn't show us both.
The problem. I want both.
The problem was we were trying to split screen it with both of us on it.
Why isn't it even showing in here anymore?
Yeah, now you can't see it at all.
Now it's not even in the drop down. Oh my god.
Did you minimize Discord?
It's here.
You're looking at the Discord? Yeah.
Yeah.
It should be showing.
Full screen projector, filters, ship properties. I mean, it's not. Oh, here it is. Alf Benny Discord. Okay. But why is it that when I full screen the damn thing? You know what? Once I get the second monitor comes, it'll probably be a lot easier to figure out.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
That's what I'm thinking. So, right now, I guess we're just going to leave it like this, and I'm okay with that. Y'all gonna fuck around with my friends and dox them and shit?
Dox them!
Okay.
Well, I just posted it on Twitter, so.
I don't
Hopefully.
understand why. Okay, let me try this. Let me just try this and see what happens, okay? So if we full screen
Oh,
this.
it's back. Oh wait, hold on.
Okay, I've full screened it now.
Keep going back.
And it should show both of us. I can see both of us on my screen.
I'll tell you now. Yeah, I see both of us. Oh no, I see you and like a quarter of me. Again, it maximizes it too big for the screen, which is very strange.
How about now?
She just had it working with Chris though. That's what Dan said.
Yeah, I know it was working. So I don't know. I didn't change any of the settings from then to
No,
now, so I'm not sure.
no, oh, no. For a second, it just showed half my face, and then it went back to the way it was, where it's like most of you and a quarter of me.
Maybe what I should do is have it share my.
She said in OBS you can zoom out. Yeah. Oh yeah. You know, like the little preview screen. Just that. Adjust what's on the screen. They have the little red circles and the lines and stuff, and you can adjust how much of that is on the screen.
What?
You might be able to adjust that.
I
All
don't
right.
see that.
You know OBS, when you have it open, there's a preview screen that shows you what you're capturing.
Uh-huh.
Within that screen, there's little red
Yeah, I
lines and
see
circles
that
that make you shrink it or yeah.
I see, but how do I... Oh, this is way too zoomed in, bro.
Oh yeah, that's weird. Oh, there you go. That's looking better at least. Now you can see both of us at least.
This is so fucky right now.
Yeah.
Because it should show me...
Oh, that's better. The way you had it for a second was better, where you zoom in so the names that were left out and it was just the screen and the chat under us. Hold on, give me a second because I don't know what. I know I'm behind, so the stream is behind us. That make it bigger. Oh, that's pretty cool. But can you make the screen bigger? Like drag it out towards the right to enlarge it? Yeah. Yep, there you go. That looks so much better. There you go.
Do we got it?
Yeah,
yes!
That looks good. Oh, it's even better. Yeah, you got it good.
Yes!
There you go.
Yes! Oh my god!
It all works out. See?
Oh, okay, sweet. Now I can minimize this window, yeah, and I can open up the chat and shit. Hell yeah, I can. Hey guys, welcome to the first OBS, well, the second OBS stream. And today, I'm actually gonna grill Alfie about his love for horror
grill
films.
Me.
Yeah, I'm gonna grill you because I don't know anything.
You're gonna tell me your shit's stupid. You like horror? That's stupid.
All the days, anything forward, moving forward from here, I'm gonna have absolutely no idea what he is talking about, but that's okay because I'm here to learn. I was gonna say I'm gonna come at this from the angle of I don't know anything, and I want you to throw all your knowledge at me, and I'm like, wait a minute,
because you literally don't know anything.
No, I don't know shit. I already told you guys.
So everybody, just as the disclaimer, Aimee has watched like 0 movies. And
oh my god,
she's been catching up with us in the last couple months.
It's never gonna happen on time, but
we did watch Suspiria, so that was your very first introduction to Italian horror.
Yeah, that was a great movie. That barbed wire room, man. That's my shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary because they're making a remake and it's coming out this year. I just saw the teaser recently. So
if I ever get rich,
an American version.
I'm gonna get a barbed wire room for anyone who comes to my house
and
talks with my shit. That's where I'm gonna throw your bitch ass.
You just chase them into that room and you could jump over to the other side and they'll fall into the pit like pit of barbed wire.
Exactly. Okay, so just to make sure.
I want to show people this.
Hell yeah! Fuck yeah! That mug is dope.
Landscaping people kisses.
All right, Alfie. So first question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What got you into horror? Was it a movie? Was it a comic book? How did this start?
I think in general, I had a morbid fascination growing up. Like I've always been attracted to like fear and horror in general.
Yeah.
Death and stuff like that. And my dad was a huge horror fan, so he didn't really restrict me from watching stuff that was scary or gory and stuff like that. So I just grew up watching it. But I think the first movie I saw that people probably wouldn't consider horror now, but it was at the time, was Psycho. That was
I've
a big
heard
one.
of that movie. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, because you haven't seen anything. But it's Alfred Hitchcock and Anthony Perkins as the main character, Norman Bates.
So do you remember the first horror movie that you saw?
Yeah, I just said it.
Oh my god! Psycho, that's the one?
Yeah. I don't think people probably wouldn't consider it horror now, but it was definitely horror.
What year was that? Do you know the exact year?
Now it's probably late 50s, early 60s, probably maybe somewhere between 58 and 62, maybe
Okay, and what year were you
around there.
born?
79.
Oh shit! So that was like 20. So it was like really grungy and old school.
Yeah, it was it's black and white.
So was Suspiria older than that one? No, right?
Now Suspiria is like late 70s.
Okay. And then, what is your most memorable horror movie?
Probably Evil Dead 2 or Night of the Living Dead. Those are probably my two. Oh, actually, I watched Night of the Living Dead with you too.
Yeah, that was
That's
a good
another one I
one.
introduced you to.
Oh, I
Yeah,
like that one actually. It was
yeah.
really
Night of the Living
cheesy,
Dead
but
is
it was
probably
really good.
one of my favorites of all time. That's that movie specifically isn't really about the horror for me. It's more about the interaction between humans in a survival situation. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was. I remember. I like
Hmm.
how the actors act really crazy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's so overdone. But I have a soft spot for that because of Bollywood, right? Like everything
Yeah,
is
that's true.
overdone in Indian movies. You know what we should watch, Alfie? There's this Indian horror film. It's called Roz. I don't know if you've ever heard of
Uh-oh.
it.
No,
But
no,
that was
never.
actually not very cheesy. It's actually they tried
Like a
to
good
make a
one.
legit horror movie, and it was really freaky when I watched it the first time.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen many international horror films and I'm into a lot of them, but I don't think I've ever seen any Indian ones.
Yeah, okay, well, maybe one day if we have time, we'll check it out because Indian
Except for
movies are
that
like,
except for that fantastic video of the Indian thriller
oh
and
no.
Bali ma ma ma. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.
That's so gay, man. So notable directors. What?
Oh, there's so many. John Carpenter's one.
You
He
got to
did
name some of their movies too. So
yeah, yeah.
director, movies. Tell me what you like about it.
You got John Carpenter, which kind of changed the face of horror in the late 70s with Halloween,
Hmm.
and created the slasher uh, genre basically and popularized it.
Yeah.
He also did really good remake of a 50s sci-fi movie called The Thing, and it's probably known as one of the top horror movies of all time and probably the greatest remake of all
The
time.
Thing.
It was
I've
so
heard of
much
that
better
one.
than the original. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fantastic with what's his name? God damn it. Never mind. And then it's part of a trilogy of unconnected movies he calls it's like Armageddon, like movies about the end of the world and shit, like horrors about that.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
another, the third one is one of my favorite movies of all time too, called In the Mouth of Madness. It's a really good one too.
That was all
That's
John
something you
Carpenter?
should watch. Yeah, John Carpenter. He's
Okay.
really good. He has a lot of good movies. Who else is there? Alfred Hitchcock, of course, who did Psycho and Birds, but he does more like crime thrillers. But yeah, Birds and Psycho are kind of like him delving into horror, and was also very influential. Sam Raimi did the Evil Dead trilogy, but and Drag Me to Hell. But besides that, he hasn't really done much for after that for horror. But Evil Dead series did a lot for horror too in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Tobe Hooper with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That was another one that brought like realism into horror and was more about giving people a look into like realistic horror, you know, like if it was actually happening, and seemed very realistic. It was even marketed as being a true story, even though it wasn't. Yeah.
Can you actually do that? Isn't that false advertising?
Nah, not really.
No?
I mean, in the end, I think people knew it wasn't real. You know, like they did that with the Blair Witch as well,
Yo.
which I guess Blair Witch was kind of influential as well because that's where all these found footage of movies come out now after
Yeah,
Blair
yeah.
Witch's
I watched
popularity.
the Blair Witch Project, and I remember like it fucked me up for a while because you know that end
Yeah.
scene where they're all like who was it with the camera that like walks in and someone's just like standing against a wall, like static, not
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
anything. That shit was so fucking creepy.
Yeah, a lot of people hate on that movie now, but I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was very different for the time, and it had a lot of eeriness, even though most of the movie is like nothing much is happening, but it's one of those movies that slowly build, you know, until the big climax at the end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I remember that movie they had a big viral marketing because it was all released as if it happened in real life and they actually found this footage and they're showing it to you, you know. But the viral marketing was like posters of these people missing. And the reason I figured out it was fake was because the number was a 555 number, which is the number, you know, all TV uses for fake numbers and shit.
Yeah, yeah. Just reminded me of that Dave Chappelle joke where he's talking about how there's some asshole who always calls that 555.
That
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
What was that other fucking movie that came out? Paranormal Activity. Did you watch that?
Yeah, I kind of dug those movies for a bit, but they just keep pushing it too far. There's
Yeah,
too
it's
many now.
always good when it's the first one. But then like when you do the same concept over and over again in a
Yeah.
horror film, it kind of gets. I mean, I'm talking like I'm an expert here, but like when they use the same concept in any movie over and over and over again, it gets old really quick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I left
but
out George Romero, who did Night of the Living Dead. So I mean, he's the person who created zombies, basically. So,
yeah,
and look how huge that is now.
I had such a bad experience watching Paranormal Activity 1 because the first time
Hmm.
I watched it with one of my friends, and he bought another friend and my boyfriend. We were all watching it, but every time right before something was about to happen, she'd be like, oh my god, this part," and I'm like, "And you fucked it." Nothing makes a difference now. Like, can I just chill here, watch the movie, and just go along with the music and be freaked out on my own? Do you have to fucking ruin everything? I can't. Sucks, man. You
Yeah.
can't do that with horror movies. You gotta stay in it, otherwise it just
Yeah,
gets
you got to be
totally
in it.
ruined.
Um, my thing with horror movies, I'm not really scared by them. I guess it's because I grew up with it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I like, since I was like 6. So I don't really have a fear of anything I see in horror movies. None of them are actually scary to me. So a lot of times when people won't like a horror movie, they'll say something like, "Oh, it wasn't scary enough." And I don't judge horror movies like that.
Hmm.
I mostly like horror movies because it seems to be a good creative outlet for
Yeah.
people. Like you get a lot of creativities in horror movies, which is why I'm not a big fan of slasher films in general. Because somebody chasing after you with a knife isn't as creative as some of the stuff that people come up with for their movies.
Yeah, so
For like paranormal, supernatural kind of stuff. And
what are your favorite elements of a horror movie? Like what if you could build a horror movie and make it all and direct it, what would you want in it? And why?
um, creativity for one, for sure. Cosmic horror stuff like that.
Hmm.
Where I also like bleakness. I usually don't like happy endings for horror movies. I think
Yeah.
it says something to the human condition to find something that's so powerful that it just minimizes our species and shows like there's no way to win this, like we're
Hmm.
we're just doomed. And that's kind of one of my favorite types of horror. They call it cosmic horror because H.P. Lovecraft popularized it in the early 1900s, where it's basically humans discovering another species that's all powerful beyond their knowledge and understanding even.
Hmm.
And the fact that it will come back to reclaim the earth will basically end humanity, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah,
Most
yeah.
people who discover it also end up falling into a slow spiral of psychoticness, where
Yeah.
they just lose their marbles because it's so insane to even fathom such a being.
I like seeing people lose their mind in scary
Yeah.
movies or whatever and shit.
Hmm.
Like it takes
Yeah,
a
one of my favorite types of horror movie is like seeing a character lose their mind slowly throughout the movie,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah.
things becoming more and more surreal as it goes. Like that, it's definitely something very interesting about that.
Yeah, it really like puts to the test someone's acting skills too, because you're either gonna look like a total weirdo or you're actually gonna be really convincing as someone who is legit losing their mind. Which I don't
Hmm.
think you get to see often. I want to see that new one, Hereditary. Who said they saw it yesterday?
Today that was
Gangle.
Gangle a
Right,
little
right,
while
right.
ago.
What did he say again? He
Yeah,
said he
I
saw
want to
it.
see that.
Me too.
Yeah, he said he liked the ideas, but he said some parts weren't executed very well. So we have to watch it, judge it ourselves. Right?
Yeah, so maybe we'll
I'm
have to
not as
marathon it.
picky as a lot of people with movies. A lot of people find small things and are very upset by them in movies, and
Like
stuff
that
like that
poor
doesn't bother me.
Asian Star Wars girl.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, that's been so upsetting. Like the poor girl. You know what I'm saying? She's just doing a job, and everybody's fucking
Yeah.
harassing her. She did it because she did her job. Like it's her fault.
I
Not
mean,
like she had any say in it. Like she could have disagreed with the movie the whole time, and it wouldn't make a difference. She still just has to do
yeah,
her
she's
job.
just doing her job and getting paid, and like that's it. But people
Yep.
like to make shit whatever
Hmm.
they want to make it. So modern horror, like in the last, I would say, what is modern? Like last 20 years?
Yeah, I guess we could say that.
What would you consider modern horror?
There isn't really like a set of modern horror like has really taken a downward spiral in the last years. It could be a thing of oversaturation. It could just be studio wanting just horror has always been like this. This is the thing about horror and why it fails a lot is because horror has always been the in for new directors, right? And that's why it was great in the past because you had these new directors wanting to show what they can do. So
Yeah.
they would do their best, you know what I'm saying, and release this thing. But horror is low budget. Horror it doesn't need a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So studios see it as we spend little money and get back a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So nowadays it's become so oversaturated and so huge that now it's like studios just throw money at things and say we want it like this, and directors and writers don't really have much say in what to do. So a lot of these movies end up becoming really cliched,
formulaic,
and
right? Just like
formulaic, and that's what's ruining horror now. And most of the times you have to go look for independent films to find good horror.
Mm-hmm.
What you see a lot with modern horror, which is what you can call it now, is that the end always has some stupid jump scare that ends the movie on that fucking jump scare, and you can count on it almost every single fucking time you go see a movie. Movie ends, everybody's happy, and you could just count on that one creature being right into the camera. It's so cheesy, but horror movies are traditionally a place where teenagers take their girlfriends to go see a movie, you know, get them all scared so they could be like, ooh, and hug with them. So they so that's what they market for, you know. But you know, in the end, if you keep doing that, you're just gonna ruin the genre, you know. A lot of it too is false scares. That happens a lot too. And if you put too many false scares in a movie, you desensitize people to it. So you know, you see a lot of like somebody creeping slowly, trying to stay away from the monster or the killer, and then you see a hand touch them, and it's like, oh no, it's just a cop or it's their girlfriend, like, you know. Oh, don't sneak up on me. Like, who goes up to people and just slowly puts their hand on their shoulder, you know? Like, it's bullshit. But you do that too many times, like every 5 minutes, halfway through the movie, people are expecting jump scares and people aren't scared by them anymore. They're not jumping anymore. It's also a cheap thrill, you know. You want to scare people, like with Suspiria, you want to scare people with atmosphere and slowness, you know, and just the general area being scary, and instead of just constantly, you know, giving a cheap thrill where people and then that's it, you don't feel scared anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it loses its oomph when you keep doing it.
And that's what's disappearing from horror now too, is just atmosphere in general.
I was gonna ask you, because Grant mentioned Saw. I thought Saw was a thriller. So is there a difference between the two genres, or do they overlap a lot?
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap with horror and thriller. I mean, in the past, a lot of times thrillers didn't really exist. They just called them horror or crime dramas. You know what I'm saying? So, but thriller has become has bled into horror, and now they're kind of in between each other, between crime drama and thriller and horror.
Okay.
But yeah, that's why I was saying with Psycho, like, I think most people nowadays would see it as a thriller as opposed to horror. But back in the day, it was just called a horror movie, you know? Like, it's more of like a psychological horror, I would think.
Yeah. Grant, I know the only reason I mentioned Saw is because I have been told it was a thriller and a horror as well. And I think some places that you look for it will genre it either or.
I think it started off more horror, but as it went on, you know, with the inclusion of like police and all this stuff, and more about trying to figure out the cops trying to figure out who's doing it and stopping it, it's turned more into a thriller, possibly. But I think in general, the gore and the concept of it is pretty horror, right? Like somebody fucking putting you in some crazy fucking trap. You know what I'm saying? You have to cut into your stomach or something to get a key to get yourself out of.
Dude, I got vertigo during that.
That's pretty horrifying.
Movie. When I went to go see it. Yeah, because there was that scene where I think it was a chick that was in the bear trap, and the room started spinning around her, and it's like flash, spin, flash, spin, spin, flash, flash. And I just fucking passed out because it was just, it was too much for me to handle. I was like sitting in the theater, and I just remember blacking out.
Oh my God.
I like woke up, and I was like,
what happened? Where am I?
Yo, where am I? Aimee, are you okay? You passed out. And I was like, oh.
I see Saw suffers from what a lot of horror series suffer from, is not wanting to end it. Just constant sequel after sequel, oversaturation. It's nuts.
But that's
Saw ended. Saw ended with 7. You know, it was over. They said that's it. It was the last movie, and now they made another one. And it's like, come on, you ended it. Just end it, man. Just give it up.
Right? Like there's
it was interesting.
You can get away with the repetition with, right? Like Jurassic Park. Yeah. Everybody wants to see dinosaurs, right? Like, even though it's the same basic concept repeated. But with horror and shit, it's got to be different. Because if you're going along the same lines of story, it's going to be the same kind of shit where they're just trying to really perturb you and make you feel uncomfortable with the fucked up shit that's happening, right? Yeah.
But what always happens with sequels is they end up wanting to make them for less and less money, so they get more and more return. You know, the thing gets popular, so you're going to make money regardless, but they just make them cheaper and cheaper. So it happened with the Friday the 13th series. You know, they started off the first one, it was super low budget, nobody thought it was going to make any money, but it became a huge hit. And then year after year they just started releasing sequel First 2 or 3 were all right. The story's connected, but after that, it just became, just bullshit. It's just people releasing the movie just to release the movie, and it just became about, instead of being about story, it just became about Jason killing people, and that's all. It was like the stories were bullshit. People were just there to see how Jason was going to kill people in the next movie.
So I haven't seen any of the Freddy or Jason movies.
No. Oh, Nightmare on Elm Street's another one. First one was great. Second one sucked completely because they rushed the sequel and wanted to just capitalize on it. But then they learned and were like, all right, now we're going to make the third one and go back to Wes Craven and have him make the third one. That one was good. But then again, after that, the rest of the sequels started sucking more and more. It's like, that's just what it is. When things get popular, the studios don't care about the fans or making a good movie. Yeah, all they care about is getting more movies. I mean, getting more money, releasing those movies quick and easy and cheap so they can make more and more.
Yeah, I consider the X-Men franchise.
Dream Child was good. Oh,
what's Dream Child? No, it wasn't. Tell me about Dream Child.
It's another Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh,
so Freddy Krueger. Yeah, it was like the 5th one, I think. Maybe the 4th one. 5th one, I think. The 3rd one was good. It was like Dream Warriors, and it was like people started learning that they could control their dreams, like lucid dreaming, and then they would have like these powers to fight against against Freddy. That was cool. Dream Child was 4. Yeah, that one was not good. He's talking about it had some good moments, but yeah.
So
Freddy's popularity made him more goofy over time, and he started becoming more of a slapstick character as opposed to a horrifying character, and he was making one-liner jokes and shit like sweet meat. It's like, shut the fuck up, dude. Staring at the camera like, like
really?
Like, shut the fuck up, dude. I'm not even joking. He just became so goofy over time.
Alfie, I want to see your shirt. That looks sick. I want to see. Like, oh, I like that.
Bunch of Marvel character heads. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an old one. I haven't worn it in a while.
It looks brand spanking new.
Yeah.
It's a good color.
Yeah, I don't wear it much because it's kind of big. It was a gift from someone, but it's like an extra size bigger than usual, so you could see it. Yeah. It's a little big, so I don't wear it too much.
It's a very nice color on you, though.
Yeah, I like that. I like the color. Thank you.
Us browns, right?
Does it bring out my magical face? My magic face of beauty.
I love that from the day you did it. What was that, Jamie's birthday video?
Yeah, I think. No, yeah, I think it was David, right? It was obsessed with me for like 2 weeks.
Oh my God, that was so
that was like, it must be my magical face.
Can we just take a moment to appreciate the beauty that is Alf?
Oh, come on. Shut up.
That's all he would do. He would just like come back and he would say that shit, remember? He would always hit on you and make
yeah. It was like a good 2 weeks that he was like obsessed with me and telling me he was going to stalk me.
You're going to get damned by David. Surprise butt sex.
Damned by David. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Nothing to talk about horror is there is a certain charm with shitty horror movies. Like there are some really bad horror movies that are charming, and you can like them.
Name me some.
Like Dan was just brought up Troll 2, which is a horrifically made movie, so low budget, terrible acting, terrible special effects, but it's just so fun to watch. I don't know. I know what it is. There's some movies that are just so badly done. Like you watch that movie Peach. Yeah. So right? Bring up like Peach showed us a movie, and it was Peach Bailey, and it was a super low budget movie that like one guy put his money in to make. It was so bad, but it's so bad it's funny, right?
That guy acts in it. He directs it. He's just shit, man. Like,
yeah.
How does he just do this with like a home video camera thing?
That's what it looks like. Yeah, it looks like he bought a home camcorder. And
like they just like went outside into some field in Arizona, and there's like a fence there and shit. That was the movie, right?
Yeah, there was a trailer and shit. Like half the movie's like outside a trailer. Like,
oh man, but yeah, it was really enjoyable to watch. I mean, like, because it's so bad, it's enjoyable. B movie, right? They're called B movies.
Yeah, I would call that one like a D movie. Like it's from way down there. That's worse than a B movie. Dan says, "I bet Alf bangs 10." I have, but I mean, I'm not gonna be above saying that I've banged low numbers as well.
What about comedy horror? So is that like Shaun of the Dead? Is that what a comedy horror?
Yeah, I love those if they're done right.
I love that movie.
Yeah, Shaun of the Dead is fantastic. I love those if they're done right. I mean, some people consider Evil Dead 2 like a comedy horror. It does have elements of comedy in it, but I wouldn't consider it a comedy horror. I consider it straight horror with slapstick elements. It can be a little goofy, but I think the point of the goofiness is also the point that he slowly goes mad throughout the movie, and then does a full 180 and becomes the hero.
Okay.
So that's why I like that one better than one.
Evil Dead 1?
Nah, we've never watched
Night of the Living Dead is always
we watched Night of the Living Dead, yeah.
Oh my god, that shit's gonna confuse me. Leprechaun series. What's that?
I don't like those.
No?
A horror movie based on a leprechaun, but the leprechaun, instead of like giving you
He's all
good
evil
wishes.
And shit?
Yeah, he's all evil and gives you shitty wishes, and people trying to take his gold, and he's like, "Yeah, don't take my gold."
Yeah,
it's really fucking shitty. I can't stand those movies.
Cabin
They
in
even
the Woods?
eventually it got so bad that they did Leprechaun in the Hood.
No.
No, I'm not even joking. There's 2 of those. There's 2 leprechauns in the hood. So bad.
Is Leprechaun just scaring black people or what?
Yeah, basically. It's like ghetto gangsta black people run into fucking the leprechaun, find his gold, and then he grants
But you
them
know why they
horrible
did that,
wishes.
right? Because like the black people's reaction to shit is always so overblown and so
There's
fun.
a market for it, yeah,
So,
for sure.
so I get that, right?
Tucker and Dale versus Evil was fun. That's another that movie, you got to watch that. That's really funny. It's about these 2 like hillbilly guys, and they go on like vacation to like a cabin in the woods to go fishing and stuff and just have fun. And they run into these college kids, and they basically like the college kids are like scared of them because they're like hick people.
Yeah.
So so it's not like their own fault, but the kids themselves get themselves in situations where they get killed.
Yeah.
And then then everybody thinks it's these 2 hillbillies doing it, but it always has to do with them, you know, like they're like, "Hey, oh no, don't walk that way," and then they fall into like a pit with spikes. "Oh no, what are you doing?" Like, you know.
Yeah.
And then they constantly think they're the ones doing it, or they just accidentally, like, in trying to like prove that they're not killing people, accidentally cause an accident that kills people and shit. It's just hilarious. It just happens over and over again. Great.
I want to watch some of these. There's not enough time in the world to watch all
Oh
these.
no,
I need to
Cabin
watch.
in the Woods was another really good one. That was a movie that I went to go see in the theater and made you think it was just another cliche horror movie of teenagers in a cabin in the wood, but it totally flips it on you, and something different completely happens, and you're like, whoa, like halfway through the movie you're just like, what? Like, this movie just turned me on my head. Like, it's crazy.
Oh my god,
What?
Chris is going to sleep. How dare you, Chris?
Dare you? It's not. It's only 10:30.
Oh, he has work in the morning.
Yeah, he does. I know it's hard for him to not get enough sleep and work.
Thank you. Love you lots, mate. You're the best. Have a
Good night, Chris.
good sleep. Alfie says good night. I'm sure he's listening, but I need to type all this. Big kiss. Mwah. There you go. Okay. Now we go. There you go. I'm fired up for the World Cup. Hey, Ender Wiggin. Oh my god, I haven't seen you.
I don't know if Peru's still in it. I haven't been keeping track, but Peru made it into the World Cup for the first time since 1982.
I can be an evil genius now because I got a big chick.
Oh, you need a skin cat, hairless cat, not skinless. That would be horror. Now that would be horror.
Yo,
I meant the hairless cat.
Inspector Gadget, the bad guy.
Yeah.
Hairless cat, right?
Yeah.
No, what's his
I don't
name?
know if
Dr.
it was hairless.
Evil.
No, he just had a cat.
Dr. Evil.
Dr. Evil. He had a regular cat. He didn't have a. Yeah, Dr. Evil had the skinless, the hairless cat. I keep saying skinless.
$1 trillion.
I think it was Dr. Mad was the one from Inspector Gadget. Yeah, he just had a regular cat. He had a
Dr.
cat, but it had like a metal dome thing on its head.
Oh, right.
Something like that, right? He was always petting it.
Mad was Dr. Claw.
Oh, Dr. Claw. Yeah, Mad was the group.
Dr. Claw.
Dr. Claw was his name. Yeah. Mad was the name of the evil organization of terrorists.
Okay, so more horror movies you like. Tell me, name some. So we got The Evil Dead. We got Night of the Living Dead.
Oh yeah, fantastic. That whole series is great. Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, all that whole Night of the Living Dead series. Well, the first trilogy was great. After that, it kind of went downhill. What else we got? Yeah, I always liked Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, classic. Halloween, I mentioned
Halloween?
already.
Which one's that?
Halloween is a character called Michael Myers, and he was in a psych ward or something, and then he breaks out and attacks babysitters basically in his hometown with big ass
Every
knife.
time people have mentioned Michael Myers to me, I thought they were talking about Mike Myers. I'm like,
the
oh, you mean
comedian.
Mike Myers?
No,
no,
Michael
you
Myers
idiot. Michael Myers. I'm like,
is the serial killer. Yeah, in
I
those
don't
movies.
know.
He wears a mask. And a funny tidbit is that they basically came up with the mask at the last minute. It was supposed to be like a potato sack mask or something, but they decided that wasn't good enough. So they went out and bought a mask of William Shatner from Star Trek, like a Captain Kirk mask, spray painted it white and then changed their hair color and fucked it all up and then put it on his head.
Yeah.
So it's actually a guy wearing a William Shatner mask going around stabbing people.
So is
Good
Twilight Zone considered a horror show? No.
Twilight Zone is it's very mixed, and so it's an anthology series. Some episodes are sci-fi, some episodes are a little more horror.
Okay.
But in general, it's people mostly consider it sci-fi in general.
Okay, sci-fi.
But yeah, there are horror episodes, and it does bleed into the horror genre at times.
So I guess The Walking Dead is something that's modern horror. Is that considered horror?
Yeah, I guess you can call it modern horror. Yeah, for sure.
you don't like it?
It's
Do you
like
like
Night
that
of the
show?
Living Dead. I love it,
Oh, you love
think
it.
it's
Okay.
but it's gonna end soon probably. So.
Yeah.
Kind of upset
Did you
about
read the
that. But hey,
comics?
yeah. The
I heard
comics
those
are even
were-
better.
Yeah,
a
I
million
heard they
times
were
better.
way more
Yeah.
gory too.
Another one is Preacher. That's a good one.
Preacher.
The
That's a
comics are
Netflix
great,
show.
and now it's a show on AMC. The third season's starting.
What's the
Next month, I
premise of
think,
that
at the end of
show?
this month.
There's some.
The premise is a preacher from Texas, in a small town of Texas, who's disillusioned with the people in his town because they all confess to him and they all constantly do fucked up shit to each other. So he becomes an alcoholic and he's kind of disillusioned with being a preacher. And all of a sudden, some force comes from the sky and goes inside of him, which grants him the power of God, basically. So whatever he says, people have to do. So if he tells people, one example from the comic book is he tells one guy to eat his gun, and he actually does, and his teeth start coming out, and he's bleeding out his mouth as he's trying to eat his gun, and he won't stop trying to eat his gun. He just keeps trying to eat it.
So it's like
so-
some kind of mind control.
Yeah, kind of. They call it the Word of God. It's just to basically, when he uses it, he doesn't use it all the time. When he uses it, his voice changes. It has like a booming
Like
effect.
Batman.
And whoever he's saying something to, that person has to do that. Like, there's no out.
Yeah.
You just have to do it.
Sean, stop talking shit in the chat,
But
okay?
He has an Irish vampire for a friend who partners along with him through his adventure to find God, because God abandoned everyone and left heaven and is hiding somewhere on earth.
Yeah.
So he goes on a mission to find God, to make him apologize and tell people why he abandoned them, basically.
Mhm.
But heaven and hell are treated as like real things in the movie. I mean, in the comic book and the show, and they're like physical beings,
Mhm.
But yeah, that's basically it. And then he has this kick-ass girlfriend that he used to rob banks with in the past, before he became a preacher. It's a very fun show. There's also like a secret society of people who have kept the bloodline of Jesus alive. So they have now, since it's all inbreeding, now the kid that's the product of all this inbreeding from the time of Jesus to now is like fucking retarded. He has a unibrow. He's always like humperdew, and peeing on everything.
Oh my god.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny. It's a very huge blending of genres in the show. It's like sci-fi and horror and comedy and thriller. That blends everything together very well. Comic book is extremely well written and very interesting.
Okay.
The show has gone in a very different direction, but it's still very fun too. Kind of telling the story in a different way.
So you would recommend
good.
Preacher?
Yeah, I recommend the show. Yeah, I recommend everybody watch it. Third season's coming up. Catch up on the first 2 seasons. Probably not
For
enough
sure.
time now.
Walking
but-
Dead. What else you got?
What else is good? If anybody hasn't read any H.P. Lovecraft, those are good.
What
Watch
is
those.
that?
And H.P. Lovecraft is a writer from the late 1800s, early 1900s. He was a big fan of Edgar Allan Poe, but he started writing and totally changed the face of horror. And he's basically known as the grandfather of modern horrors, starting from like the 60s and on. Like anybody who made horror from the 60s and on was inspired by this guy. And he's known as he's basically the grandfather of horror as we know it today. But that's what I was explaining before, how he wrote cosmic horror and things that people aren't meant to know, that humans aren't meant to know, and you slowly go mad from seeing it. And learning these things slowly drive you insane, basically.
Yeah. What else? Haven't I
Very good
asked
shit.
you? So you named John Carpenter as one of your favorite directors?
Yeah, John Carpenter's good.
Did you say Wes Craven?
Wes Craven, I'm in and out with Wes Craven. He does his early shit. Some of it's good, some of it's not. He did this one horror movie I don't like. It was before Nightmare on Elm Street. It was called Last House on the Left. And it's just basically about these 3 criminals who kidnap these 2 girls and like torture them for basically an hour of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I don't want to see girls get tortured for an hour. Like it's just boring. It's stuff you don't really care to see.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. They did do a remake in modern times that was better because they toned it a lot toned it back a lot on the whole torture thing. But basically, we're sitting around watching these guys fucking make these girls pee their pants and shit like that. It's just like, hey, why?
Okay,
I guess I could give a realism to the horror of things, but it's just unnecessary. It's just like, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so
there was a payoff in the end, though, but it wasn't enough for me.
Yeah. There was this movie that I saw. I don't know if I'm gonna remember the name right now. I can't remember the name, but basically the premise is there's a guy in this girl's neighborhood, right? This young girl, and he basically kidnaps her, beats her, he puts her in a safe. She's wearing this charm bracelet, and he like took it off her, and he like sits in front of the safe, and she's all fucked up inside in there. I can't remember what it's called now. Oh, it's really good. I wish I could remember the name. It's based off a novel.
I don't think I've seen that. Huh. Sounds good. Sounds interesting.
It's so creepy, man. Like the whole thing is really cool. It was probably one of the first movies where I noticed like, oh, it's really gray and the lighting is really dim because this is actually really fucking dark. I didn't pick up on these things until like watching more movies with you guys and you guys just pointing shit out to me. And like, you know, like, oh, this scene is like lit a little bit darker so you get a feel. Like, it's not just the music, right? They do a lot of trickery.
Especially with horror, a lot of it really deals with sound and atmosphere and the way you set up the scenes, you know. A lot of people don't realize that. They just, you know, a lot of people are cheap, like I said, cheap thrills before. A lot of people are fans of the cheap thrills. They just want to see people get killed and this and that, you know. But they don't realize how the intricacies of really making it creepy and setting a mood, you know.
So how about, what's that movie fucking called? The Last Destination? What is it?
Oh, Final Destination.
Final Destination.
Those had a good idea, but again, they were like cheap teen movies, and they were kind of marketed towards teens. So there is a lot of cheesy parts in them, but it has a good idea, and it is enjoyable. I can enjoy it. I enjoyed a few of them, not all of them.
Yeah.
I thought the second one was the best one.
I haven't seen any of them.
Yeah, the second one sets up a thing where the girl kind of has a vision of the way people die, so she's trying to stop it from happening, but every time she tries, it just ends up a different way, and they end up dying anyway. So that was a cool, interesting thing to it.
I just had a movie in my head, and now it's popped out. No, it's fucking gone. It's gone, man.
Dan brings up It Follows. That was a recent movie. Very good movie. Understands horror completely. Like whoever made that completely understands horror from like 70s and on. He knows it very well. And yeah, it's all in there. Everything you want to see out of a horror movie is in that movie. It's fantastically done. But see, that's one of those more independent films that where it did have a budget, but it wasn't like a worldwide theatrical release kind of movie, you know? So I wouldn't call it an A film. It's more of a B film, but not 2B.
But not to be, though.
Not to be. or not to be. But yeah, a great movie. I loved It Follows. And that's one of those polarizing movies. People either love it or hate it. I don't see what's to hate about it. I thought it was fantastic.
Human Centipede? Did you see that?
Human Centipede? Yeah, that's more for shock factor.
Okay.
Which isn't bad. I can deal with some shock factor movies. I thought the first one was pretty good. The rest are kind of like continued in the same vein instead of trying to make it better. It's just more shock and more shock, you know, like. So the first one was pretty good. It was decent. It is a very shocking
movie I actually own called The Ninth Gate. Do you remember that Johnny Depp movie?
With Johnny Depp? I love that movie.
Yeah, that's actually a really good movie.
And I like it because of its oddballness, right? It's very obscure.
It's so weird, yeah.
You really don't know what's going on, like the whole movie, and it even ends with what's going on no matter what. You just don't get the movie. Yeah. But I love that. I love when movies force you to think, you know, like it. That's another issue with movies nowadays too. Everything's spelled out for you, you know, and I enjoy movies that don't spell everything out for you.
That's kind of why I don't like watching trailers anymore, because I just find they're so long. And like, even with the superhero movies, even if they do cut out scenes or use scenes that they don't use in the movie, it still kind of takes away just a little bit, I find. Yeah,
maybe just a little, but it's all on the movie, right? Like some movies are just movies you're just going to go watch and, you know, you're going to have fun and you're not going to care about thinking too much. You know, you just go in, watch some action, watch some, you know, giggles here and there, you know, and just have fun watching the movie. Some movies, you know, you're going to see and you want to think on that movie.
So,
and you want to experience something that makes you work for it. Right?
Oh, Chrissy's here. Chrissy,
hi, Chrissy.
Turned me on to this podcast. It's called Vanished. It's about like old serial killers and shit, I think it is. I haven't listened to any of it yet, but I plan to. That. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Because I started one day going down the rabbit hole of like top fives and top tens, right? And there were like top five mysterious deaths. The
Uh huh.
Black
Oh, I
Dahlia was
love
on that.
those
Yeah,
YouTube
I love
channels.
it
I watch
too.
like crazy all day.
It's
Crime stories,
yeah, like once you fall down the rabbit
mystery.
hole, it's hard not
Yeah,
to.
I go
So
through it
this
all the time.
story fucked me up. Okay, there was this. You're
Hmm.
gonna know this story. The Asian girl from Vancouver who went to
Lisa Lam. Yeah,
who went to
yeah, yeah.
California,
I love
and
that
she
one.
ended up dead in the fucking water cooler or whatever on
Yeah,
the
and
roof.
that's reminiscent of a Japanese horror movie, which was brought up instantly, where a girl was found in the water tank on the top, and it's part of that movie. Yeah,
Ugh.
basically, it's a apartment complex that's haunted by a little girl,
Yeah.
and then and in the end, they find out why. It leads them to the water tank on top, and they find out that the little girl was stuffed in there.
Yeah. Did you like The
Basically,
Ring?
yeah, loved it. Well,
Did you
not
like
the
Ringu
American
better?
or Ringu. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ringu. I liked Ringu better. I actually did
Oh,
see
of
that.
course, yeah. There's something
Um,
about Japanese horror that's good is that, but you have to put yourself in their mindset. Like you
yeah.
can't watch it from our mindset because we have different ideals of supernatural and what's scary. They have a different idea of that too as well. Spirits to them are different than spirits to us, of the way we
Um,
view it.
what else? There was another.
But yeah, Ringu is good. Japanese horror is almost every single time better than their American counterparts. I can't think of one that isn't. Like every single one's better. They also are very good at atmosphere and setting up things, and not rushing towards things. If you watch like Ringu specifically, right? If you watch that, it's not a quick movie. It's a slow burn kind of movie. It takes a long time. They're investigating. It takes a long time till you get to the part where that there's horror in it.
Mm-hmm. What else is there that's scary or horror?
I love Japanese horror. They do a good job, but that's kind of died out now. There's kind of a fad in Japan, and that fad's kind of gone.
What fad? Horror movies?
Horror in general, yeah.
So what are they doing now? What's the thing?
Action mostly.
Oh, really?
Action, fantasy, supernatural stuff. Not supernatural. I mean like sci-fi and supernatural kind of things.
Fake meat. I don't know what Chan's talking about.
What else is good? Yeah, we delved into Italian horror. Now,
So Suspiria is the only Italian horror movie that you've seen, or are there? I'm
oh
sure
no,
there's
I've
more.
seen tons. I'm kind of obsessed.
I need to
I
finish
had a period
watching.
where I was very obsessed with Italian horror.
Yeah, I need to finish watching The Shining. I did start watching that. I didn't finish it. What a fucking freak show of a movie,
The
though.
Shining is classic. The only
I
horror movie
liked it.
Stanley Kubrick ever made. He did a great job with it.
Really?
And he turned that it's psychological too, so that's a really
Yeah.
good psychological movie.
Stephen King writes a lot of horror novels, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's one of my favorite.
So the original It actually scared me away from watching horror movies because that movie freaked me out so much. I hate clowns because of that movie.
Yeah, a
really
lot
don't
of people
like
do.
it.
That really changed the face of clowns for a lot of people in your generation, I
So
guess.
what movie of his have been adapted into movies, and which one's your
Oh,
favorite?
way too many.
Well, name some of your
They've been
notables.
adapting his movies since the 70s.
Yeah.
Carrie
Oh yeah,
was the first one.
Carrie!
That was the one that brought him into the spotlight and made him very famous. That was the
Okay.
first one. Salem's Lot, his take on vampires.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big one too. Children of the Corn. I love that one.
Look
The
what
Shining,
Grant
of course.
just said. Rude.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting. Sean keeps telling me to watch this movie Inbred, and I keep forgetting. I do need to watch that. Pet Cemetery.
Poltergeist. I haven't seen Poltergeist. Pet
Yeah, I can see
Cemetery?
how Poltergeist fucked up clowns for you. I remember that, and that was pretty fucking shitty for me too. With the clown and shit, I was like, ah. But that was just a small scene. It wasn't focused on clown. What else? Well, he also does not good non-horror movies too, like Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption.
I've
The
seen
Mist.
Green
If you
Mile.
haven't seen that, that was a really good
I've
one.
not
That was a
seen
good
The
horror
Mist.
movie. Yeah, that's a good one. It's about this mist that starts encompassing this small town in Maine, a little island in Maine, and there's these creatures in it basically that are bleeding into our world from another world.
Mhm.
And the whole story just takes place in a supermarket where this guy and his son get trapped in a supermarket with all the patrons there, and they're basically trying to survive in this supermarket.
Yeah.
Really good. What else? Stephen King is good. I don't know. He's got a lot. Stephen King's changed a lot over the years. So, I mean, after 50 years of writing and being the #1 bestseller with every book he releases, you're going to change. You're not going to say.
It's
So
by
he's
Shane
kind of
Willis.
strayed away from horror and gone more towards like thrillers and cop stories and stuff as of late.
So
Yeah.
I feel like I would be more into like psychological. I guess that's what a thriller is, right? Like it's a
Yeah,
psychological.
yeah.
It's a psychological thing.
I like the psychological horror, but I like it more in the supernatural. I mean, reality is here. We can experience it. I
Yeah,
like to see
yeah.
things that are outside the walls of reality.
So you're talking about like actual some kind of like spirit or ghosts or
Yeah, or like I said, discovering something that makes you lose your mind
yeah.
about
Okay.
humanity or about life in general.
That happens in Roz actually. The main girl, she keeps seeing this premonition of this ghost thing, and it like she progressively, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like this,
Here's that movie I mentioned by John Carpenter at the mouth in the Mouth of Madness is a perfect example of the type of horror I like. It's and it's super inspired by H.P. Lovecraft and Stephen King. Whereas this guy is investigating a writer, and in the world something's happening. This guy's a #1 bestseller. He's based on Stephen King, but they call him Sutter Kane. And these people and the people who read his books are slowly going mad and telling and asking people and going around asking people, "Do you read Sutter Kane?" and then
I
killing
like
them.
that.
And it's happening over and over again. But as this guy investigates a story, he starts realizing he's becoming part of the story, and then it starts bending reality, and he doesn't know if even you as the watcher don't know if this is the story in the book or real life. As slowly bending and more horrific things start happening and things are going crazy. That's the kind of horror I very much enjoy, things like that.
Yeah. Oops.
I like that it makes you think, right? Like The Thing, which was the first one of John Carpenter's to go and to delve into this stuff. The Thing is about a group of people who go to investigate in Antarctica what happened to the last group of people that were there because they all stopped communicating. So they go there, find them all gone, and then they start realizing that there's an alien entity that's disguising itself as people.
Okay.
So now they don't know which one of them is the Thing and which one of them are people. So the whole thing is them trying to figure out which one's the Thing, which one's the person.
Like it's really funny you say The Thing, right? The thing that I think about the thing that I think about when I hear The Thing is the Addams Family.
Oh, really? When
Is
I
the
think of The
hand
Thing,
just-
I think
Is the hand
of
called
the
The Thing?
Fantastic Four. The hand yet? No, it's called Cousin It.
Isn't Cousin It the big hairy thing?
Yeah, maybe. I guess you're right. Yeah, it is The Thing. You're right. Yeah, you're right. It is Thing. It shows how different our worlds are, because when I think of The Thing, I think of the Fantastic Four.
They are doing a new Addams Family movie, by the way.
Ah, why?
It's amazing.
Come on. No, let it die. Or do another TV show at
Come
least.
on, man.
A
That show
movie.
was good. I love
I'm not saying it wasn't, but I'm like, there's certain things you gotta just let it go. It's like what they did with Twilight Zone. They kept bringing it back, and
I'm
never
gonna let you
did
go,
the original.
bitch.
Yeah.
There goes Dan again, bitching about my keyboard. He hates it. It's so clicky. He hates it.
Yeah, see, Grant's like, I agree with Alf. Why? Yeah, just go back and watch the old ones.
Well, again,
Watch
I
the
think
old
it's just
movies,
because
watch
I
it,
grew up with it, right? That's the shit that
yeah.
I grew
I did
up
too,
with.
though. I grew up with the old black and white TV show. I watched that shit every day. That
I'm
and the
not talking
Monsters.
about the black and white
Oh,
shit.
the movies. Yeah, I was already
No,
older.
no. There was also a show
Oh.
when I was a kid. It's a
What?
newer one.
Of the Addams Family?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. That I don't remember.
It was a Disney Channel show, I think.
It's probably because at that moment I was like, why? Like I am now.
Whatever, man. Aaron and Mike could play Wednesday and Thursday.
That's funny. I don't know. The movies were good. That I was good with that, and I was good with the old show was what I liked even more.
So
Than the
there's a
movie.
black and white show too. Then that I didn't know of.
Amy, come on.
Nigga, I don't know shit. How many times I gotta
You
tell
grew up in that rock in Vancouver.
I don't know anything.
Yes, the Addams Family was an old black and white show around the same time as the Munsters, which was another similar premise black and white show.
Yeah.
That was the Munsters. How did the Addams Family go? Yeah. Yeah, I was always more of a fan of the Munsters than I was Addams Family.
I don't
Addams
know what
Family
the
was fun
Munsters
too,
is.
but the Munsters was more
The
fun.
fuck is the Munsters?
The Munsters was a family of monsters. Like the dad was Frankenstein, the mom was Frankenstein's monster, the
Yeah.
son was like a little werewolf, and grandpa was a Dracula. And then they had their niece, the mom's niece that would live with them, who was a normal person, she was just a normal blonde-haired chick, but she didn't see them as being weird, you know what I'm saying? And she was the odd one out, but she didn't see her family as being weird because it's her family.
Yeah.
But everybody else, when she'd bring people over or whatever, friends or somebody would come visit, they'd all be like, oh my God, and scared of these people. But they were just normal people, you know what I'm saying? They looked like monsters. They did like they lived in like weird morbid ways, but they were just normal people. He had a job, like a normal person. So
You
it
know
was
what
like
this
the
reminds
funny
me of?
of it was the way they lived.
This reminds me of Hello Kitty because Hello Kitty isn't actually a cat; it's a girl
Yeah,
who just lives a
it's a
normal
girl in a
life.
cat costume.
No, it's not even in a cat costume.
No, it's not
She's
even in a
just
costume.
they just don't acknowledge the fact
Oh,
that
that
she
she's a
looks
cat.
like a cat and is just a cat.
Maybe she doesn't look like a cat, and maybe that's just how she looks to herself, and nobody else really sees
That's
her as
very
a cat.
possible.
Yeah.
Plot twist. I like that.
If you really want old horror, I recommend Island of Lost Souls. Not sure if I saw that one. I remember Carnival of Souls. That was a good one. That was very Twilight Zone-ish.
Maybe in the next week we should pick a night where we all watch
Make a horror movie night.
Yeah, we should. Do
You
that.
could do it like once a week. We could pick like a horror movie night and
Yeah.
pick one.
Hey, Jared.
There's so many good ones, from like old classics to now.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be worth doing. We have a lot of
Horror's
stuff on the
gone-
go too, though.
Yeah, horror's gone through huge phases. Like if we could start in the early 1900s and go through the black and white classics of RKO and Universal Pictures, making like the old black and white, Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Invisible Man, stuff like that. Or Creature from the Black Lagoon. Then the
Ooh. Is there
Oh,
any
correct.
werewolf movies you like or would recommend?
Not a huge fan of werewolves.
No.
But one of them, in general, that's a fantastic movie is Werewolf of London. American
Okay.
Werewolf in London.
That's a classic. Right?
Oh yeah, it was like
I just hear that.
I think it was
that name
80s,
a
like
lot.
early 80s.
Mhm.
John Landis made it, and it's kind of comical as well, but it's more of a straight horror. But there are comic elements to it. But it's just
Mhm.
basically two guys go backpacking through the UK, and they end up getting attacked by a werewolf. His friend dies, but he lives with the scratches on him, and the curse is basically every full moon you turn into a vampire, a werewolf, right?
Okay, so vampire
It's
movies.
very good.
There's got to be some good ones that are not Twilight. So the Vampire
Yeah,
Diaries,
yeah, of
not the
course.
Vampire Diaries. Interview with a Vampire.
Interview the Vampire is good.
Not horror. Though.
I have an issue with romance vampires. I
Yeah.
don't like them very much. I
Yeah, I don't
think
blame you.
vampires should be monstrous.
Because
But
they're monsters.
Exactly, but Dracula set the premise for this, where Dracula was an aristocrat, right? So he gave the air of being a likable person, very educated, and spoke very polite and all that.
Mhm.
But in the end, he was a monster, right? And that's part of him being a monster.
Was that?
He's not the kind of guy.
Nosferatu?
Nosferatu was the first adaptation of Dracula done in
Okay.
I think Ukraine or Yugoslavia, and they made him different. They made him look like a monster. Whereas Dracula made him more, like I said, like a handsome aristocratic man, Bela Lugosi, yeah. And but he was still a monster in the end, not like Twilight where they're not really monsters.
Oh god, that shit's so gay, man.
I don't like romance, or I don't like when the story focuses on the romance of it as
Yeah.
opposed to the horror of it.
But I mean, okay,
Whereas, like,
that was the point of it, and it was. I'm not defending it because the
Mhm.
books were shit.
oh, of course,
I remember when the first movie came out, I was kind of a fangirl. I was like, oh my god, vampires. But then I watched it and I'm like, these things sparkle. Vampires do not
Oh,
fucking
God.
sparkle in
they
sunlight.
sparkle in the
This is some
sun.
gay shit. Like, what is this vampire?
That is gay, and it
Sparkly.
completely focuses 100% on the love triangle of her with the vampire
The
and the
werewolf
werewolf.
and the vampire.
Are you
and-
team this guy or team that guy? Remember all that?
And let's just
Going
ignore
on.
that this guy is like 1,000 years old and she's like 18 or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
no, it's fine.
yeah. The point of a vampire is they trick you and they stalk the night and drink your blood and kill you or turn you into one of them. So
Yeah.
doing all this romance shit is fucking useless. Which Interview with a Vampire, while a good movie, does kind of romanticize them.
Mhm.
So it does have aspects I don't like about it, but in general, it was a good movie, and it was a huge movie in its time.
So zombie movies.
Zombie movies, I love those, but again, this is another thing that over time has lost what they're really about, and has just become movies about killing zombies. To me, zombies are the obstacle, not the main thing of the movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, they are what causes the characters to conflict with each other. It's a survival situation, right?
Right.
So the interesting thing about zombie movies is watching this slow. It's a slow obstacle, right? Like, I'm not a big fan of the fast zombies. So there's been some that are good, but it's a slow obstacle. So I mean, the whole thing is the human conflict.
Yeah.
Just like we saw with Night of the Living Dead, the zombies were just basically a secondary thing, right? The main conflict in the story was whether they should lock themselves in the basement as the one guy wanted or stay on top like the other guy wanted, you know. And that caused a huge conflict between them and basically got them all killed, you know.
Okay, I have like a total off-topic question because I see your Watchmen poster back there. You love that movie, right? So
yeah, it's a great movie.
The first time that I saw Watchmen, I saw it in theaters. I don't know if it was the 3D shit that fucked it up for me, but I did not like it.
No. What didn't you like about it? Let's get to that.
I don't remember now. That's what I'm thinking. I was going to say it's one of the things I think I need to watch again. There were like certain scenes that I thought were shot kind of weird, and some scenes were awkward, but I didn't understand that. Like, I don't think I had at the time thought that like there was going to be just awkward communication like there is often between human beings and people in general and shit. So I think now if I watch it, I'll come with a different understanding. It was like Iron Man for me, right?
You also have to put yourself in a certain mindset because it is a like allegory for the 80s and 80s politics and the way things were going in the 80s.
Oh, okay.
The comics, it's more prevalent in the comics and understandable because, you know, you get Ronald Reagan a lot and Nixon and shit in the comics, you know, so you understand more that the entire story is really, and it came out in the 80s, but the whole story was Alan Moore writing a commentary on the way things were going in the 80s, how it looked like things were going so bleak, you know?
Okay.
And that was kind of the answer because comic books are all about these great heroes who are like, you know, always saving the day, always doing what's right. And this guy's like, you know, we're in the 80s where our heroes are doing fucked up shit. You know, things aren't this so fucking cheery all the time. This is the dark story of turning heroes into...
I want more of that. I want more of the dark shit, you know what I mean? What about the problems that you can't solve? And just end the movie there.
Yeah, dark shit is good, but I think it's meant for certain characters, not all, right? Like, Batman works well dark, you know, but Superman doesn't. Superman's not... Superman is the opposite of Batman. Superman is the beacon in the night. You know what I'm saying? He's the one who shows you that always do what's right. You know, he doesn't fail like that. He's a Boy Scout. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's the one that shows people like, this is what you do. This is the good shit. But Batman is the one that shows you that shit's not always so bright. And sometimes you have to delve into the darkness too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's two opposite things, but they both have their meaning and they both make sense. You know, it's nice to see the contrast between those two, which is why it's always fun to see Batman team up with Superman in the comics. It's that contrast, you know.
I still need to watch Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, it was a really sloppy movie, but I have not seen the
full
version. Yeah, I haven't seen the full version, so.
Oh, you watch the director's cut?
The director's cut, yeah, which is another thing that really bothers me about nowadays, and I feel like they do it on purpose. I feel like they release the inferior version on theaters so they can make more money when they release it on home video, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh no, you saw the theater version, now check out the full version, you know, like, no, I paid money to go to the theater, I should get the full experience, you know? You're just fucking chipping people off.
That's what they said too. So like the director's cut version I've heard is the better version, and then I hear that's the same with Blade Runner as well. Like, don't watch the original, watch the director's cut.
Yeah, I would say so too, but I mean, I liked both versions regardless. I liked Blade Runner when I was a kid, but that's another very slow movie. It's meant to be. Now, a lot of people don't like it because of that, because it can be boring, but that's kind of what it's meant to be. It's a film noir.
Isn't it visually? It's supposed to be a visual.
Visually it looks beautiful. Yeah. The guy who wrote the original novel, he died before it released, but when he was seeing the concept art for it, he was like, wow, you guys captured the image of what I had of the future perfectly, like how he described it in the book. And he saw what the area looked like, and he was like, wow, this looks beautiful. This is exactly what I envisioned.
Yeah, I think Marino
they did a
actually
great job
sent me
at
like
capturing that.
8-minute video. It was around 2049 when that movie was coming out in theaters, and he sent me this video that showed like all the art. A lot of it was like hand painted and like, not very much CGI. Well, yes, maybe CGI too, but there was a lot of drawing and painting and shit.
So, we were gonna. I was going through the eras of horror.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So like we had like the 30s and 40s where it was like the RKO Universal Films, which gives us all the classic monsters. Then we got to the 50s. UFOs became very popular, you know, like, because that's when we came up with the term UFO was at the late 40s, so it became super popular. So a lot of horror in the 50s dealt with alien invasions, and that was really good too. There's a lot of good classics in that. 60s and 70s 60s to 70s started getting more towards supernatural stuff. We got a lot of Ghost Stories, Exorcist came out. That was a huge thing. So we had a lot of religious horror. There's a lot of good ones. I'm not religious, but I like religious horror. I like movies to deal with like cults, satanic cults, and stuff like that. Those are always fun.
Possession shit is cool to me.
Possession is cool. Satanic cults are cool, like Satanists summoning demons and shit like that. That's always cool too. After that, the 70s started going towards a lot of slasher films, which was, to me, they had good ones at that period. But like I said, I'm not a huge fan of slashers.
Carrie a slasher film?
No.
No?
No, but that's a good one. Stephen King movies were different at the time, so that was the one different from the rest. But Carrie is not a slasher film. She does not slash anyone. And in fact, there's no horror in the entire film up till the last 20 minutes where they pour blood on her at the prom and then her psychic abilities come out. So it's more supernatural. She has psychic powers.
So maybe I haven't seen Carrie then.
You should. Fucking fantastic movie. Great.
Okay.
I think girls like it more because it's more like a film about a girl getting picked on and being the,
and then she gets fucked up and goes on a
yeah, but she has these psychic powers that she unleashes at the end, trick her and make her think that, she's lovely and all this stuff. But it was all to play a gag on her. And she just flips and kills her. 15 minutes of the movie. Then we get to 80s. 70s to 80s was very slasher, tons of slasher. But the 80s was the period where horror movies gained prominence and became huge. So we got all types of genres in there, and from there on, in the 90s, the rest is, it just kept getting more and more saturated and more popular.
I don't know, UFO was a genre of horror. I would think.
Yeah, Alien Invasion is very much a genre of horror. In the 50s, especially, those were marketed as horror film. Yeah, I guess you could call it that. Well, sci-fi and horror bleed in a lot too. Look at Alien. The first Alien is definitely a horror movie.
I was really young when I saw that. I don't remember.
Yeah, but it deals with an alien killing people on a spaceship.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's also, you can call that sci-fi horror, but it definitely goes more towards the horror aspect, whereas the sequel went more towards an action aspect. So you had horror sci-fi for the first film. Second film was more action sci-fi. And I think that's where Alien kept going after that, was sticking to action sci-fi, which I don't like. I preferred the first movie. I preferred the horror. Mars Attacks. That was just a comedy straight up.
Was that the one with the alien that had the brain and the...
Yeah. Which was a callback to the 50s horror sci-fi movie.
Yeah, Lost Boys. What's Lost Boys? I've heard of that before.
Lost Boys is a great 80s horror. I guess it's horror, but it's more of a teen film of the time. But it's really good. It's a vampire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's really good though. It's a great movie. Lots of fun.
If they'll ever make a vampire movie again. After
a good one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's still vampire movies coming out now, I'm sure.
I'd like to see a good scary
vampire. You need to see some good ones. Yeah, there's a couple, man. It's hard to think of things on the spot sometimes, I know if you asked me at the right time to name some horror movies.
You have a lot of information in your brain. I mean, you're talking.
Yeah,
about,
it's hard to. Yeah, it's hard to go through the file cabinets.
You're talking about certain time periods and shit, and I can't remember any of this stuff. I have a very bad memory, I think. It's not memorable. I don't. It doesn't stick.
Yeah, Evil Dead. Chrissy mentioned I've already gone through that one. Evil Dead is a story of this guy and his girlfriend. I'm gonna skip the first one because the second one's kind of a remake of the first one, where they got a bigger budget, so they kind of just condensed the first movie story into the very beginning of that, and then went on with the story. But it's basically a guy and his girlfriend go to this cabin in the woods to, like a romantic weekend. They go to this cabin in the woods, but what they don't realize is this cabin. Someone else lived there and they left their stuff there. So he finds this tape recorder and he plays it, and he finds out this guy that lived there was an archaeologist, and he had discovered a book called the Book of the Dead. And it has rituals for summoning these things called Kandarian demons, right? Which are these ancient demons that were put away and then held away with this book. But as he's playing it, the guy starts reading the book, and he's reading the incantations. The guy himself isn't reading it, the guy recording. So he's listening to the recording of this guy saying the incantations that summon the demons. So basically, to the guy who was reading it, he had summoned that demon, and he talks about how his wife was possessed and all this shit. But the guy playing it doesn't realize that in those incantations, he just summoned the demon again, and they come back, and basically he's got to fight off these demons, in the cabin.
That sounds fucking dope. Is there any other like
Yeah, it's fantastic.
demon type? I guess possession would be cool.
Italian horror loves demons. You
Yeah.
see that a lot. There's one called aptly named Demons or Demoni in Italian.
Yeah.
And it's just basically demons coming out of a movie theater, attacking a movie theater. That's a good one. What else? The Beyond, another great movie. There's a whole series called the Gates of Hell series, but they're not. Again, Italians do this a lot with their horror. They're not really connected, but they have the same theme, you know, so
Okay.
they're like thematically connected.
Okay.
So it's basically like a door to hell that gets opened up in a specific place. You know, the first movie was in a city, the second one's in a hotel, which is the Beyond, and the third one's in a house, like in the middle of nowhere. So, yeah, those are pretty good. The Beyond is one of my favorites. Like besides Suspiria, the Beyond is
That's Italian.
great film.
The Beyond.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, by Lucio Fulci. Great.
Lucio Fulci.
Yeah, Lucio Fulci.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, Suspiria is Dario Argento. Dario Argento.
You gotta do this.
Yeah. Dario Argento is another great filmmaker. He's done a bunch of good.
I like
but-
the name too. Oh, I was gonna ask, is Donnie Darko horror? Or no?
I wouldn't call it that. There's nothing really horrifying about it. There has creepy elements, but it's not really horror, right? Like,
Yeah, that fucking bunny. It's so.
yeah, that bunny's scary, but it's not really like the bunny's not really going around killing people or
Yeah, I
causing
guess
horror
so.
to anyone, you know. He's just kind of a vision the guy is seeing. But the cool thing about Italian horror is they weren't not bogged down by Hollywood. So they that's why it's so off the wall too. Like there's just such strange things in it happening, and they don't really care about the funny thing is the Italians really cared more about the gory aspect. So it's just more about special effects and, you know, fucking insane kills like acid falling on some chick's face or, you know, like, and watching it melt away or somebody getting their eye poked out slowly on camera. But they were more about atmosphere and feeling tense as opposed to like anything else, you know.
Oh, that can set the mood though. The atmosphere shit is like.
But again, they were
impressive
cheap.
how certain scenes do that. You know, they actually you're immersed in the experience because the music and the colors and everything.
But it's fun to watch foreign horror because different places culturally have different things that frighten them, right? So you get to see something different outside of your own. That's what I was saying about the Japanese horror. If you watch that with our mindset, you're not going to get it as much. You know, you have to put yourself in their position and see how differently they fear things and the things they see as being horrifying.
So
it's fun. It brings you to a different place. You're so used to what we see as horror, you know, that you can finally see the creative outlet from another place, you know, and how they view it.
So Chrissy's question: would you consider the Hannibal films horror? I forgot about Hannibal.
Those are one of the ones that bleed together as horror and thriller. I think some of the more. I think Silence of the Lambs I feel is more thriller, and then Hannibal is more horror. I think because Hannibal, you see a lot more deaths. He's killing people here and there. He does a more horrific shit. I mean, Silence of the Lambs wasn't Hannibal killing people, right? It was Buffalo Bill doing it. Buffalo Bill wasn't as frightening to me as Hannibal was. When you see Hannibal the movie, you're like, holy shit! Like this dude is on the loose. You know, the first movie, all we knew was about this guy in jail. We didn't see what he actually did. You know what I'm saying? We just kind of heard it. Now we fucking saw it. It's like, oh shit!
I like Silence of the Lambs too.
Yeah, Silence of the Lambs is
really
great.
Like
great
that movie. So creepy.
I didn't watch the Hannibal TV show, Sean, so I don't know. I have heard it's good. Maybe I'll give it a shot one of these days. But yeah, the 80s is a cool period we could check out. There's a lot of really legitimately good horror films, and then there's also a lot of good bad horror films. You know, like the 80s was great for that, for putting out really shitty horror films that were fun, that people love, you know. And people still have very fond memories of, because it's just so goofy, you know, that you gotta enjoy it. You get stoned and watch them and you'll laugh so hard. A lot of good ones like that. And, you know, and then and it was the time where horror finally reached the spotlight, and we got a lot of fun, goofy stuff like Gremlins. I don't know, you ever see Gremlins? Yeah. Where that was more aimed towards children, but it was still fucking horror. And if you watch the first Gremlins and second Gremlins nowadays, and you watch those, and you'll be like, wait, this was for kids? Like, there's some fucked up shit in these movies that you wouldn't imagine being for kids, you know?
I like the first
one. I mean, they are murdering people. Oh, the second one's even worse.
Oh, is it really?
Definitely not for kids. Yeah, but it was totally marketed towards kids. but yeah, I mean, they are gremlins that are going about killing people. So I mean, that's usually not for kids, right?
Yeah, true. But
So
the
just
thing
the concept is great.
that's so confusing is those things are fucking so cute.
Yeah, well,
They're
not
adorable.
the monster ones weren't really cute.
Yeah, I guess not. But the main one,
Gizmo is cute, but what you do, you
Gizmo.
can't feed them after midnight or get water on them, or they sprouts out a bunch of these fucking evil fucking gremlin things.
Red
Right?
guy could be Gizmo.
Yeah, I think he is. He might be.
I think he's a lot
Or
of
else it
things
gets
we
the
don't
hose
know.
again. Yeah, see, Chrissy says, I love the good bad shit. Yeah, me too. She brings up Toxic Avenger a lot. That's a fucking
What is that?
really super low budget movie from New Jersey,
Yeah.
from a New Jersey movie company called Troma that's really known for these really bad movies that
Mhm.
people love. But he's basically a superhero. He's a dude that was a janitor for a high school that was kind of semi-retarded and people made fun of him.
Mhm.
Then he falls into a vat of like toxic waste and then turns into this big Hulk melting kind of creature that's all powerful, that's super strong, and then he just goes around like punching the heads off people and ripping their arms off and shit.
Yeah.
It's really goofy. It's really goofy. It's meant to be goofy. It's meant to be low budget and shitty,
Okay. Okay, so
but
that's
it's fun.
There was a movie that you said we were gonna watch, Turbo Kid.
Turbo
It's
Kid.
not a horror. It's not a horror, I know.
I wouldn't
but-
call it horror, but it does have horror elements. Again, it's very gory, gruesome, but it's more like post-apocalyptic sci-fi, I guess.
Mhm.
It's just meant to be a quirky movie in general, though. A callback to the 80s.
Who's your favorite monster? Do you have a specific monster?
That's a
your favorite?
tough one, yeah.
Name them off. What comes to mind.
Like of the classic ones, tough. I really like the story of Frankenstein because he's really not a bad guy. You know what I'm saying? He's just seen as a monster, so everybody's scared of him, and that causes monstrous things.
Yeah.
But like if you watch the original Frankenstein, he doesn't talk, so it's kind of weird. But in the end, he's more like the Hulk, where he's super strong and ugly, but he's kind inside, but he's just quick to trigger, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But he likes kids, you know, he doesn't want to hurt anybody. But then he gets
likes
triggered,
kids.
and, oh, yeah, and he freaks out. Yeah, he likes kids. Because he has like a kid's mind, right? Yeah. But then you trigger him, and he's like, oh, and he just goes nuts because he's got a damaged brain. I mean, you put someone's brain in someone else's body, you know, and resurrect that body.
Yeah.
You know? He's a patchwork human. He's just got pieces of different humans put together, you know.
Like Leica.
Yeah, like Leica, exactly like Leica.
Remember that hand pic, the picture of the hands stapled together?
Yeah.
That Devin used in his video?
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically
A
Frankenstein.
picture of Leica post-surgery.
Leica Stein. We need to draw Leica with the little bolts on the side and shit.
Hey, it's Leica's birthday tomorrow, people. Just
Remember that. Dracula is really cool. Has a cool concept too, because it's just like some guy, like I said, that's very aristocratic. He's likable, and you have no idea that at night he's sneaking into people's bedrooms and fucking drinking their blood and killing them.
Yeah.
So that's a cool concept. But I still like monstrous vampires better, like Nosferatu. But that was a better take. I think vampires should be
like that's what it was supposed to be, like the long creepy fingers and the fucked up teeth.
It's really not supposed to be like that, to be
No,
honest.
isn't it?
Nah, the original Bram Stoker's Dracula, the book, he was the aristocratic kind. Yeah.
So he looked like a human, but he was just like really pale and.
Yeah, basically, and he lived as an aristocrat in Transylvania.
Yeah.
But his whole concept was, to murder people, to drink their blood. That's how he lives, right? But the whole story is about him taking some guy's girlfriend, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But in Bram Stoker's Dracula, he actually tries to get to New York.
Okay.
He needs his own soil to live, though, because he's supposed to bury himself, basically. That's why vampires live in coffins. They sleep in coffins.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a thing that got changed later on. It wasn't just a coffin. They also need their own soil where they were buried. You know what I'm saying? That's what keeps them powerful and gives them rest. So he got all that stuff and put it on a boat in the book, and the boat took him to New York.
What is Babadook?
I didn't like Babadook. I have to be honest with you. It's a story about a mom who's having trouble raising her child, basically, and she has all this emotional distress.
Yeah.
But it comes out in the form of like a story book that she reads to her son of this creature called the Babadook, basically like some guy with a top hat and stuff. And it starts
guy with a top hat.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was too depressing. It's just extremely depressing from beginning to end. I didn't find any joy in that movie.
No?
No, a lot of people love it. I didn't get it. I was excited to see it because people were saying like, "Oh, it's such a great film. You got to check it out. It's such a good horror film." I watched it and I just thought the whole movie was extremely depressing. And I was like, And it also blurs the line of whether, the Babadook was real or is this woman's anxiety and stuff going on. It's kind of like one of those things, which usually I like, but the way they went about it, like I said, is just way too depressing of a movie.
Yeah.
I don't care to be depressed from a movie.
Yeah.
I'd rather
Hey,
have
Ken.
fun and enjoy a movie and be fascinated.
I guess you
what
can
else
tell that like I have a new setup now because I'm running OBS and my computer and everything doesn't look like shit, right? So
yeah, it's good. It's running great.
This is the new computer. I'm
The
waiting.
camera's great.
Yeah,
you look so clear.
It's the same camera. It's just that my
No,
internet...
is it? Yeah,
Here's
because
the
your
thing.
internet was so bad. Your computer was so bad.
My internet was so good,
Yeah.
but the laptop was so shit that it slowed down the computer and it couldn't run anything.
Yeah, I couldn't run it properly.
Exactly.
Dan brought up The Others with Nicole Kidman. See, The Others I see as being the downfall of ghost horror and haunted house horror, where it was a decent movie. I enjoyed the movie. It had a cool concept, but that was the beginning of movies coming out with a fake premise where they sell it to you on one premise, but then you go see it and it's a completely different film, and it's not as horrifying of a concept as you think. Like, this happened a lot after that movie. Lots of movies come out pretending to be a paranormal horror movie, but then you watch it and it's really about a killer and you just think it was paranormal, which is bullshit. And they all basically were the same story. Or maybe it was paranormal, but the ghost, instead of being the villain or scary, is, it starts off as scary, but then you find out, oh no, it's really giving me a message to solve its murder, which is bullshit. Which is funny because the Ringu kind of does that, but it doesn't, because it makes you think it wants you to solve its murder and that's going to end it, but it doesn't. You know what I'm saying? You know why? Because that bitch is fucking evil, and that's what we need. We don't need this false fucking ghost shit. We need real ghost shit.
And I remember I liked it a lot. And then I watched The Ring, and I was like...
Yeah, The Ring wasn't as good. It was all right, though. I think it was a good interpretation, like an American interpretation of it.
Yeah.
But then it went downhill after that. Seriously. Oh, brother, what did you... I watched The Others as a kid. The old lady scene fucked me up for a night or two. That was all right. American Horror Story started off pretty decent, but it just went downhill.
Mm-hmm.
It got really regressive.
That was a TV show?
Yeah, and it was like an anthology show, but instead of being every episode being different, it was a whole season, and then another season would be a totally different thing. Mostly with the same actors, recycled, but playing different characters. Some of them were good. So later on, they started getting worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
What about French horror? Yeah, I've never watched any French horror. I remember Haute Tension, High Tension. I heard that was really good, but I haven't seen that one yet. I should watch it because I've heard so much about it since it came out.
I hear Korean horror films are good.
Yeah, I have a few of those. They're pretty good. My only issue with them is they do like what American horror does. They tend to have the same premise. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like a haunting, and they all kind of lead to the same thing.
Yeah.
A lot of them end up leading to the person actually being dead the whole time. Stuff like that. What they do have is good serial killer horror. A lot of good serial killer horror. I like psychological thrillers, not slasher. I agree with you there. I'm not a big slasher fan. I like some. If they're done right, I will like them. If you haven't seen Hatchet's a good one, and that's a callback to 80s slashers, but they do it really exaggerated. So it's fun, and they poke fun of themselves and the genre in general. So it's meant to be fun,
Yeah.
It's not meant to be like a serious horror movie. It's meant to be a fun film, poking fun or parodying 80s horror, but straight.
Yeah.
So it's good. Those are good movies. I didn't watch Hatchet till more recently when someone told me you gotta watch, because I was just like, oh, another slasher movie, whatever. And then someone was like, no, you have to watch these movies. All right. So I ended up watching the first one, and then I said, fuck it, and watched the whole series in one night, like 3 or 4 movies straight through. And I loved them all. I thought they were all fantastic.
Fantastic. It was fantastic.
It was fantastic. Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Guillermo del Toro. He does some pretty good fantastic horror, like fantasy horror, right? Like
Yeah.
Pan's Labyrinth. He did one before that called Chronos.
Did I see Pan's Labyrinth?
Pan's Labyrinth is great.
I don't think I've seen that.
But his horror kind of treads the line. It's not fully horror, but it's I would call it like fantasy horror. Like, it makes it fantasy horror. These fantastic creatures. And
Was that
with
the one with
magic
the big
faces.
flying white thing?
I don't think it was flying. There was one white creature. He had like eyes on his hands and shit. I don't know if he was flying.
I
I don't remember if he was flying. I
I
haven't seen it in a long time though. But I like Guillermo del Toro. He's one of the people who I thought would be the only person to make a good H.P. Lovecraft film, and
Yeah.
they're not letting him do it because they want him to have a romantic interest in it, and he won't. Because there's no romance at all in any H.P. Lovecraft
I
stories.
don't know why they need to inject that into everything.
Yeah,
You know
they
what I
think
mean?
that people won't come see a movie, or women won't go see a movie if there's not romance in it, basically. And it's
That's
like,
their
no,
fucking problem.
there's
Like,
female horror fans that aren't into the whole, that don't need
exactly.
romance in there, you know. But yeah, that bleeds again into the idea that horror movies are for teenagers, and that's what ruins it. But
Yeah.
H.P. Lovecraft is not for teenagers, even though I read it since I was a kid, but
Mhm.
it's really not for teenagers. It doesn't have teenage elements that would lend towards teenage audiences.
Do you like
But
Devil's
talking about
Back?
H.P. Lovecraft, in the 80s, there was some really good H.P. Lovecraft based films where they adapted it, but, you know, did it different because H.P. Lovecraft's really hard to adapt. But for anybody out there who wants to watch these, Stuart Gordon and Brian Yuzna made a great bunch of movies. What's this guy's name? Oh my God. I hate when shit escapes my mind. Stuart West, The Reanimator. So if you watch The Reanimator, fantastic film about a scientist who wants to discover how to reanimate the dead. He comes up with this like liquid that he injects into bodies and and they go crazy and shit. And then From Beyond, another great one he made about a guy who finds a frequency that basically activates your pineal gland and lets you see into another dimension that's happening on an alternate frequency to ours. So this dimension exists with us at the same time, but at a different frequency. And hitting this frequency with this thing he hits this frequency with this thing called the resonator, and it helps you look into that other dimension. And you can see the creatures there and what life is like there. You know, they could see you too when you hit that frequency.
You know what you
So
just reminded me
that was
of?
H.P. Lovecraft too.
Do you remember those things you could get? It looked like you could stick like discs in it that had like different.
Yeah, viewfinders.
Yeah.
That's what they're called. Yeah, I love those things.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, I guess.
You just reminded me of that.
Yeah, that all comes from the theory in the past of the third eye. You know, the pineal gland is supposed to be the third eye. That's where H.P. Lovecraft came up with that
So
idea.
questions for you. Did you like Devil's Backbone?
Yeah, that was a good one. I don't remember it too much though. I did see it a long time ago. Probably one of those I should watch again. Favorite horror writer, H.P. Lovecraft, and then Stephen King probably. Clive Barker, that's a good one too. Hellraiser, very much a classic. That's one to watch.
I'm gonna have
If
to
you
watch
haven't seen
this
it.
fucking
Yeah,
stream again.
the first two
and
are
write
good.
down stuff.
The series went to shit after the first two, so don't even bother with it. The first two are good. They connect.
It's a series. It's not a movie.
No, it's a movie.
Oh, okay.
It's a movie, but
A
I mean, it's a
series of how
movie
many?
series. Yeah.
How
Oh,
many?
there's so many now. Don't
Oh,
even bother
really?
knowing how many there are. Who cares? Watch the first two. That's all you need. Nightbreed, fantastic. Clive Barker, very good. David Cronenberg is in it, who's not an actor, but he's a director that makes good horror movies as well. But he actually plays the villain in that movie. It was great for his first time being in a movie. He did a great job.
You
I
guys
want to
should
see
watch this.
what's that.
Hi, Paul. I don't know how to play videos and shit yet, so it might be a good idea not to do that just yet.
Well, you might get your
That too.
taken down if you do.
Have you read The Long
Man
Walk?
Bite. Oh, it's the trailer for Man Bites Dog. I'll check that out later.
Have you read The Long Walk
Have I watched
by
what?
Stephen King?
Yes, a long time ago. That was actually by Stephen King, but at the time he was going by a different name. He was going by a pseudonym called Richard Bachman to separate himself from his own novels because he wanted to, at the time he thought he would have to stick to horror. You know what I'm saying? Because he was known as this huge horror guy. It was really early in his career, and he thought he had to stick to horror. Well, I don't think it was him. I think it's maybe his publicist didn't want to release these books, and he couldn't get them released because they weren't horror, and his name was so tied to horror that he had to make another name called Richard Bachman and they would release these stories as Richard Bachman, and those became a hit on their own to the point. And then he became so big to the point where he was like, I'm Richard Bachman, you know, like I don't need to release him as Richard Bachman anymore. That's who I am.
Yeah.
Because those stories weren't really truly horror. They sometimes they had horror elements to them, but they weren't truly horror. One movie they released that was under the Richard Bachman story that was adapted was The Running Man, which became an 80s action film.
Yeah.
But it's basically a story of criminals get a second chance at life by basically going into this game show.
Mm-hmm.
But the game show is survival. Like they have guys who come out and try to kill you, and they have to try to survive. You know, it was a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, it was a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The movie was good, but the book is so much better. They changed so much from the book, but the movie was good. It was decent. It was fun film. Yeah, the host in the game show in the movie was the old host from Family Feud. That guy killed himself, but Richard Dawson.
Big fat guy?
No, way older than that. We're talking 80s. It's Richard Dawson.
Oh, how old is that?
Yeah, we're talking 80s. 60s? Probably
really?
60s. Yeah, Family Feud's been around a long time.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know these
Definitely
things.
way before Louis Anderson, I'll tell you that much. When I grew up was the host before Louis Anderson.
Right, that's what his name was, Louis.
I spy a gorgeous rack. Yes. Spy it every time. I gotta pee. Can I get a second?
Go for it.
All right.
Yeah, do your thing.
Do your thing. Do what you want to do. It's your thing.
My mic is right here in front of me, so if it's low, so Paul, let me update you guys. I have everything for the setup. The reason that everything looks really awesome is because the computer and the internet work well together. So my laptop that I had before, which was kind of dying and on its way out, wasn't actually able to handle the speed of the internet. So it kind of fucked up the way a lot of things worked. So I now have my really dope processor. If you haven't checked my Twitter, Aimee and Chill at Twitter, at Aimee and Chill. I did post a video of the setup. It looks really cool. I got some LED lights going. It looks like a spaceship. I'm waiting on one more monitor. That should be here by next week, Monday or Tuesday. And I have one big monitor right in front of me. It's a 27-inch Samsung. It's beautiful. I got it on sale. I have a really sick Razer keyboard that's all rainbow colors that I can program and set. My processor, I can actually change the colors and stuff too. I got this really cool mouse right here. It's a Corsair. I'm using the same webcam, which Chris actually got me as a present, which is cool. But it works a lot better because I have the computer power as well as the internet now, which the computer is good with to make it work properly. I went shopping yesterday and got the chair and the L-shaped desk, and the whole living room has been rearranged. You can see my couch has returned. Everybody keeps asking me where the couch is.
Oh, shit, the cops got it back for you. Awesome. I'm glad they caught those fuckers.
Every stream, right? Like, the last 3 or 4 streams, people are like, Aimee, man, where's your couch? I'm like, it's right behind me, guys. Don't worry, I didn't get rid of the red couch. Yeah, so thanks, everybody. I am actually going to do I do plan to do a video, but I want to make sure everything is here and set up so that I can do a nice video and have everything in it and the whole setup and do that. Hello, Mark.
I thought of someone that I didn't mention. I just thought of Hellbound Heathen. The name of the original Hellraiser, the book, is called A Hellbound Heart. I wonder if he got that idea from that. Maybe not. But I just thought of somebody we didn't talk about, Rob Zombie.
I was going to ask you because I know he was in a horror movie.
He's not in a horror movie. He makes horror movies.
Oh, he makes them. So he's in a band?
He's been making them since the early 2000s. Yeah.
So he's in a band and he makes horror movies?
Yeah.
So tell me about his horror movies. What you like about them, don't like. Is he good?
I love them all. And that's an area of contention that I always get with people because a lot of people don't like his movies or like some, don't like others. I think they're all great. Yeah. But I do like some less than others, obviously. But his first movie came out was House of a Thousand Corpses, which also helped Chris Hardwick's career because he was in that movie.
Yeah.
And that kind of put him in the spotlight a bit more. Yeah, see, Dan says, I don't like Rob Zombie's movies. I don't know, they're not bad. I think Rob Zombie truly understands horror. I think he's a true horror fan. And I think his movies are mostly homages to eras and genres of horror, right? Yeah, I think people kind of miss out on that and don't understand that, but it's understandable. People have different tastes in movies, obviously.
Yeah.
But House of a Thousand Corpses is very much a callback to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Very much so. It's just basically a bunch of kids who end up going to a house and, you know, getting kidnapped by these people and tortured and killed. Then you have Devil's Rejects, which was kind of a sequel to that, but done completely different. And it was more of the grittier side of 70s horror, as opposed to the crazy, you know, like just straight up killing. You know, there's more like serial killer, gritty filmed very dirty, you know, looking very dirty and, you know, with lines and shit, looking very 70s. Yeah, Dan says he didn't like House of a Thousand Corpses. I love that fucking movie. And I love it for multiple reasons. It's just so off the wall, the things constantly going different, and the way it was filmed, so many different filters and different angles of shots. It was just very creative and very well done. Very creative while not being creative, because it was more of an homage, right? So it was creative in an homage kind of way. Lords of Salem is my favorite. That's usually the worst for people. People do not like Lords of Salem, but I fucking love that movie. I think it's the best thing he's ever done. And that's more
Rob Zombie.
Rob Zombie, yeah, and that's more of a lot of his movies are callbacks to the 70s. Obviously, he loves the 70s horror, which as I do as well. But it's definitely a callback to the whole thing we were talking about at the 70s being big on satanic cult kind of films and summoning some ancient evil and shit. That's that's Lords of Salem, which has to do with a song, an ancient evil song, basically, and they're bringing it back and playing it on the radio and shit. It's fucking nuts. And the whole movie just blurs the line of what's real or not, and kind of has this sound in it that fucks with your head. You know what I'm saying? It kind of makes you feel off kilter every time you hear it. Every time I hear it, makes you feel off kilter, and that's horror to me. You know what I'm saying? That's totally perfect.
It's supposed to be. You're supposed to feel unsettled, right? It's supposed to be unsettling.
Yeah, that's.
I like that because it pulls you out of like
that fucking movie.
It pulls you out of like the familiar feeling of comfort and shit. Which I like too. I like movies.
But to be honest, a lot of people did not like that movie, and I fucking love that movie. So it's my favorite one that he's done. Then there's his Halloween remakes. He remade Halloween, which I think he did a fantastic job. Again, a lot of people don't like it, but I think he did a great job. He added something to it that made it more than just a generic slasher film, which I liked. And he also gave an origin to Mike Myers, which I was cool with. Okay. But the second movie, especially, people didn't like, but he was forced into making that movie. So since he was forced into making it, he was like, fuck this, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. And that's another film that kind of blurs the line of reality or not, and you're not sure what's happening. And it's definitely more artistic, which I like art films. I think it's nice when people bring art into horror films that are usually just made straightforward.
That's so meta, man. Art within art. Whoa.
Yeah, art within art, man. Yeah, horror films tend to be very straightforward. They don't tend to blend too much art in it. So when it's not, it's really nice when you see that, like The Shining, which is a extremely well-made film.
Inverted. What do you mean? Why is everything?
Oh, what's inverted? I'm not looking at the stream, so I don't.
Let me see.
But cameras do that. I mean, my camera inverts things. My shit's always inverted. Oh no, mine isn't inverted. Mine says Watchmen normally.
I'm looking at it. It looks fine to me.
Yeah, you're inverted. I'm not.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. What makes a difference?
Why is it gay?
Yeah, who cares if it's or not? Don't even listen to that. It does not matter at all. You don't even have any words in your background to like see it backwards anyway, so who cares? And then he came out with this movie 31, which I liked a lot as well, and a lot of people did. That was actually the very first video I made on my YouTube, was my review of 31. I got a lot of views on that right off the bat because I got to see a screening of it as well. So that was like, I got to review it before it even came out. So that was always good. But yeah, that movie was fantastic. I don't know what people didn't like about it. I think people might have not liked the fact that it didn't have an ending, like the movie just ends. But I kind of like that. That's another thing I like a lot, is movies without endings. I like to come up with my own ending. Like I like when a movie ends without a conclusion. A lot of people don't like that, but I love that. And that's the thing with remember I was talking about that Stephen King movie, The Mist, where that mist comes with monsters in it. The ending of that gives a conclusion, but the book, the short story, is one of my favorite Stephen King short stories, and it ends not giving you a conclusion. And that's one of the things that always stuck with me about that story and why I liked it so much, was because it does not give you a conclusion. The story is written as if the person experiencing it is writing it down. And it's left at a Howard Johnson's, which is a hotel chain. It's left in the drawer. So it's kind of like you discovered these notes that somebody was taking during this whole horrific thing, and you're reading it. So obviously there's not going to be a conclusion. You know what I'm saying? Because you're reading it as they leave it there and saying, well, we're going to go try to find help, you know? So there's no conclusion. But the movie does give it a conclusion. And I wish it didn't, but it is a very shocking conclusion, which makes people very polarized on whether they like the ending or not. This is very shocking and emotional. But I do very much enjoy films that don't have a conclusion. I like movies that just end. I'll tell you how. I think that's appeals to your creative side, and you just have to sit there and speculate on, films that make you speculate and talk for like 2 or 3 days about it. That's great. You know what I'm saying? If you could have a movie that doesn't tell you everything and you have to talk about it and argue with your friends about it, maybe for like 2 or 3 days, that's always fun, right? I enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You don't get that too much anymore. That's a big thing too.
Well, because again, movies don't leave a lot for mystery anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like we were talking about that Johnny Depp movie, Ninth Gate, right? Yeah. That's a movie that just kind of ends. You're not really sure what happened at the end. You're, and you have to sit there and think about it and then come up with.
And it leaves you fucked up for days after, and you're just
and it leaves you thinking about it, kind of fucked up, and it's like, holy shit. I love when movies do that. That's a great thing. I love when books do that as well, which is another thing. Stephen King got that from H.P. Lovecraft. That's an H.P. Lovecraft standby. Most of his stories don't have an end, which is why I was telling you about the bleakness. Most of his stories is just telling you the story of how somebody discovered something that's beyond human knowledge and understanding and drives you mad and eventually just spirals into madness, and then it just ends with the thing with no resolution. The thing isn't stopped, like it's still coming. Nobody did anything. It's just basically, just a small, that it's just going to continue to descend into madness and the destruction of humanity.
The destruction of humanity.
Yeah. We're just specks in the universe. And it's nice to feel that humility sometimes. Yeah, not even specks, but that's probably the smallest I can bring it to.
Yeah.
We're atoms in the universe. What's in the box? Seven is a great film. Not, I guess it has horror aspects, but it's more of a crime thriller. That's a good one. Have you ever seen that? With Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman?
Of course I have.
Classic.
What is it called?
Oh, I saw that in the theater. Seven.
Oh, yeah. Brad Pitt.
That's where all these memes and this pop culture thing of what's in the box comes from.
Yeah.
What's in the box? And he's got the gun and he's like, you never seen that? He gets all distraught. He's like, what's in the box? What's in the box?
Dude,
fucking great scene. The movie's fantastic. Are we?
No, you're on my end. I don't know what I did. I did something.
It is looking choppy on mine. Oh, now it froze. Let me refresh it.
Can I even refresh the stream? I don't know how it's
no. Your OBS might have froze.
Yeah. How do I do that? What do I do here?
Oh, no. Do they even hear us?
They can probably hear us, I imagine. So I'm going to chill around for like another 15 minutes because I got to get my laundry and get going too. So it's still moving on Discord. It's just really lagging.
I guess if they hear us, it's okay. At least they know what we're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. We started moving again. Oh, but it stopped again. Yeah, I saw it move for like a second. We moved and then it froze again. We can hear you. I blame Chris. Paul said.
Click
now you're back.
It should
click
refresh.
and unclick.
What do you mean?
How about if you minimize and then maximize again?
No, we're frozen. Do you want to build a snowman?
Well, if we got 15 minutes, we could see if anybody has any questions for me, or if you have any more questions.
Yeah, you guys have any horror questions for Alfie? This is the Alfie Horror Interview Show.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like it's back now.
Okay. Well, on my end, it's still
moving
kind of
again.
Frozen, so it's
I'm seeing it moving. It's going back and forth. It moves for a bit and then freezes again.
I wonder what I did. This is what I get for opening Duran's link.
Yeah. Shut
God
up,
damn
Dan.
it.
Nobody's
That's
gonna
not
delete
fun.
System 32.
I don't know how to do
I know.
this.
Dan says
Controls.
refresh Discord.
Refresh
I don't know if you want to do
Discord.
that. Yeah, Control R.
But my Discord is moving. It's just OBS. I can see you in it.
Yeah, I would think it's OBS. Yeah, I don't think it's Discord. I think it's probably the bitrate in OBS. Yeah, OBS is kind of shitty, but it's like the only thing we can use for this shit. So, but OBS has its problems. It freezes, it lags, it has all types of problems.
It's back.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I love you, Alf. No homo. Thanks, Robert.
All right.
I know. Or
Thank
should I say a Han
you,
Solo line and say I know?
Darren. Okay, so I guess what I can do here is if I download the Logitech software, I can play with it so it's mirrored. I don't really care personally as long as
Yeah, it
the
doesn't
video
matter.
works, right? It doesn't really matter.
I would only really affect something if you held up a sign with words on it or something. It would come in reverse. But
Yeah, but I could
it's not
probably fix that too, right?
yeah. But in the end, it's not.
When I'm looking at the stream right now, it looks like me in a mirror form. Like I don't even look inverted, so I'm not sure what these guys are talking about.
No, it's not inverted. It's mirrored. I think inverted was the wrong term for that.
Isn't that what you want, though?
Or mirrored.
Hey, Delane!
I don't know if you want that. It doesn't matter. I'm not mirrored. You can read Watchmen in the background. It says Watchmen.
Yeah.
It's not mirrored.
I understand. Okay.
I don't think it makes a difference, though. Who cares? Off top 5 favorite Misfits songs or the most horror. That's hard. Well, one of them is Bullet. That's not really a horror song from them. That's the JFK song. Yeah, that's hard. I like too many songs. It's hard to do it, to pick some. Hollywood Babylon is good. Horror Hotel. Ghouls Night Out. This is a ghouls night out. It's my destiny to eat meat, to eat flesh. My destiny. So I don't even recognize Amy's boobs when they're mirrored. The wrong one is bigger than the other.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Alfie, Delane, what's up, man?
I gotta pee. Remember when Delane used to go,
I hope one day Chrissy will bend.
Alfie!
Alfie! We were straight. That was my first stream.
That was so
He
funny.
just kept screaming, Alfie!
I remember
was like, what?
we were like in Discord one day, all of us with Devin, and like Delane just came crashing in, and he's like, Alfie! Everybody just stopped talking.
Like, what the fuck?
Hello, Mary, prom night too.
Oh God,
Can't
those
be
movies
late
are
80s
terrible.
horror ever.
I don't know if anybody ever seen Night of the Demons. That's a crazy horror movie. That's cheesy but really crazy. There's like one chick that, Linnea Quigley. She's a famous girls from like horror movies are called scream queens.
Okay.
You know, those are people who become famous basically for being horror movie chicks in horror movies.
Yep.
So Linnea Quigley is a big one from the 80s, and there's a scene in this movie called Night of the Demons where she's being possessed basically, and she gets like a lipstick and she starts outlining her boob with it and like coloring her boob with the lipstick, and then she sticks it in her nipple and it just goes totally in her nipple and shit. Yeah, it's fucking nuts. And when I was a little kid watching that, I was like, what the fuck? Like, wow, this is crazy. But yeah, I like that movie because it was so nuts. Mono's The Hands of Fate. Man, I seen that when I was a little kid. I don't remember it too well. I'm trying to think of other movies that are like
so what's
classic.
the next one we're gonna watch?
We can continue with the Night of the Living Dead series and go on to Day of the Dead. There's also Night of the Living Dead was written by two guys. It was George Romero and Dan O'Bannon, but they feuded over the movie.
Okay.
And they split after that. So George Romero continued the line as Of the Dead. Dan O'Bannon won the rights to call it Of the Living Dead, basically.
Okay.
So George couldn't continue calling them Of the Living Dead, or it would have been Day of the Living Dead. But you know, since he couldn't call it that, he just called it Of the Dead. So Dawn of the Dead is the sequel on his side. Dan O'Bannon went into a totally different way and created Return of the Living Dead line, which are more comedy horror.
Okay.
So it's a world where Night of the Living Dead actually happened, but it was caused by the government and was kept hidden. And these people who work at this like morgue or whatever discover these canisters, which was the chemical that creates these zombies basically, and it's goofy, you know, and they fuck up. Oh no! And the gas squirts everywhere and shit.
Alfie, I
And it's
love
basically
watching
fun.
you
It's all
talk
these,
about
yeah,
horror. It's so cute.
yeah.
Your face is so lit up right now. I love
But
you.
thank you. I love you too.
Love you.
But the movie's great, especially for me when I was a kid in the 80s, because I was always into punk, and the movie's about a bunch of punk rockers who are going to pick up their friend at work at this place where he set off the gas, you know, they create zombies. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of goofy shit, like the one punk rocker guy, he's so angsty and everybody's talking to him and he's like, you think I dress like this for fun? This is a way of life, man. It's so fun. I always wanted to put that piece in like a song or something. It's such a great line about, you know, how punk rockers act and think and shit.
Yeah, a lot of people have talked about this movie. So Paul said, "Are you going to see Hereditary?" We'll probably watch it.
I don't know
when
if
it's out.
I'll probably watch when it's out. I don't know if I'm gonna go to the theater.
Yeah.
I don't really go to the theater unless it's like really big, like special effects movies, like, you know.
Yeah, it's not
Like
worth it
superhero
otherwise,
movies
is
and
it?
stuff. Oh yeah, Annihilation. I was talking to this girl Tiffany the other day, and she brought up this movie Annihilation. She asked if I seen it. I thought it was really good. I did see it. It's a very thinking movie, but she was saying that she'd think it'd be cool if we talked about that movie. So I was like, maybe me and you can watch that movie and then stream about it afterwards, talking about it and what we
Yeah.
think about it. It's very much a thinking movie. It's definitely worth a watch. We'll
So I'm
watch
gonna
it.
need you to hold my hand through it.
Yeah. You can sit. I'll piggyback you through it. Just sit on the back. I could carry you like a backpack. You're small enough.
Aw, do it.
Oh yeah, hi Tiffany. Hail and please.
That's
Yeah, seems
Dan's
that
long
interesting
lost
to know.
lover is Tiffany because he's such a
Yeah.
Chad.
Because he's such a Chad.
Fucking.
Oh
Chad.
yeah, that makes sense. Tiffany and Chad.
Right?
Oh my god.
When I get really
That-
baked and I talk to him and I kind of sound like I'm from California. I
Yeah,
told him,
you
I'm
sound like you're from California all the time.
Yeah.
There's not a moment where you don't sound like you're from California,
I'm like, oh
except
my
for maybe
God.
your slight Canadianisms that come out.
You're the
occasionally.
aboot. The
Yeah,
aboots.
boots and hey.
Eh?
Yeah, right.
Um,
Oh, so you went to the movies, hey?
I told Dan, I'm
So
like,
Canadian.
you're the Chad to my Tiffany.
Chad to my Tiffany.
Yeah.
I think Trevor's another one, right? Or Travis.
Travis,
There's
really?
so many
that
white
like a
names. Travis is such a
surfer?
white
Is that
name.
a
Come on.
surfer
Yeah,
name?
totally. Hey, Travis.
Remember that guy? The guy who.
Or maybe Travis. I could see Travis being more of a hick name too.
Yeah.
I know a lot of Southern guys with the name Travis. Brad. But I guess that goes with Chad. Kind of similar. I used to know a guy named Bradley Scott Earl. I was like, great, you have 3 super white
Yo,
first
I was
names.
gonna say,
That's
that's
your
so
whole name.
white.
That's your
Damn.
whole name. Tad. Tad. That comes from Thaddeus, though, right? Tad. Can go either way. Alf looks even more handsome in blue. Thank you. That's what
That's
she was
what
saying.
I
earlier.
said, yeah.
Yeah.
It's those jewel
Um,
tones, man.
There's so many. The funny thing is, there's so many things about horror, and I miss everything, but we're not going to get to it all.
No.
Because then we could delve into like extremely absurd horror, like David Cronenberg.
You and Dan should do a horror stream because he
Yeah.
probably... Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
entertaining. But Dan...
Yeah, that would be entertaining. Maybe we'll
such
do
a
that
fucking fag, though.
later this week if Dan's down. I mean, I haven't done an on Alf Penny Raw in a while.
Yeah.
I could do one on Thursday and have. I think Dan might have been the last person I had on. I probably have him on again. Start up a new season of Alf Penny Raw.
A new season.
Yeah, I took a break. Now we'll go back.
He was just
It's hard to
watching
get-
movies in general.
Different people to get on all the time, right? Every once a week. It's not easy.
No, but I kind of like the do it whenever you feel like format too.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
Then
I
when
do
you
too.
do it, you feel like doing it, and it's like you can tell, right? Like when you don't want to, not you, but when people don't want to be
Yeah.
there and they're just doing shit, it's like,
Yeah, it gets a little.
dude, you're just doing shit to do shit. Like if you're not having fun, don't fucking do
Which
it.
is like why I like to just give random names to our random streams. You know what I'm saying? You know how me and you be like, hey, let's just stream right now. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'll put a random
Yeah.
name on it. We'll stream. Now, when I do Alf Penny Raw, that's more of like me with a guest. And then I set it up and be like, hey, you want to stream with me this day? And
Yeah.
You know.
It's
I
hard.
usually do those on Thursdays.
It's hard to get raw once a week.
It's hard to get Raw once a week.
But
I
it's
get Raw
worth it
every
for
day.
Alfie.
I work myself Raw every day. It's hard to do it for an audience
Kids
every
at
weekday.
home, that was a jerk
Yeah.
off joke.
Don't forget to jerk off every day, kids. It's good for stress levels.
Hey,
Then you could be cool and chill and
masturbate,
happy all the
man.
time like me. Yeah, masturbate, dude. Just have Ninja Turtles come out, right? And be like, don't forget to masturbate, dude. It's totally radical.
You know what I was just thinking of? The guy who's like, Jesus, man.
Jesus, man. Or that one, I always like the one with the kid at the computer too, because that one's like similar, where he's just like, and then he goes. It's so funny. He's just a goofy looking 90s kid with the spiky hair and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's just has no emotion to it. He's just like he doesn't smile or laugh or anything. There's no emotion.
That's
That
fantastic.
kid's great. The more you know.
Yeah,
I miss those commercials. I got a cool horror movie to bring up that you should watch.
Yeah.
That we should watch. That's really silly. Is The Stuff.
The
And it's about
stuff.
and it's about killer yogurt.
What?
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a good one. Then there's horror can get so absurd. We got like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. That's another absurd
Attack
one.
of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah, but sometimes they're good. Attack of the Killer Tomatoes isn't that good. I'm not a big fan of that one. But The Stuff was great
Okay.
because it's like a goofy concept. They know it's a goofy concept, but they take it straight. You know what I'm saying? They don't play it as a comedy. They play it totally straight.
Yeah.
And it's great because of that. Is that a takeoff of The Blob? Yes. Yeah. It's kind of a
I haven't seen The Blob either. What is
kind
it
of an homage to those 50s also alien invasion type movies, but instead of being anthropomorphic aliens, it's a blob, right? Like that's what The Blob is. Basically a meteor lands on Earth and it releases this blob thing that keeps getting bigger with each person it engulfs.
Sharknado is gay.
As stupid as it gets. Yeah, I'm not into those movies. A lot of people like those. I mean, they're bad on purpose. It's meant to be. It's funny, but I just don't find them funny, and I don't find them entertaining. I never touch myself inappropriately because I know my dead grandfather is looking. How do you know your dead grandfather doesn't find joy in you touching yourself?
Yeah, don't you want to make him happy?
Yeah, man. Maybe he touched himself a lot, and it would make him happy to see you touch yourself a lot and be cool and calm.
When I think about you, I touch myself.
I really think that people who get angry a lot and aren't enjoying life don't jerk off enough. I think masturbation
it must be like some negative
serious
vicious
amounts of stress.
cycle. It's like you hate yourself, and you'd probably feel so much better if you jerk off, but you hate yourself so much that you don't.
So you don't jerk off? Yeah. I think that's a problem.
Dude, that's
it's
so sad.
It's like our bodies are meant to release that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not meant to hold on to it. The point is we were supposed to, in the old days, originally we're instinctively meant to constantly breed, right?
Hell
We want
yeah.
to propagate the species. So our bodies are, needing to get rid of that. If you're not, obviously we're not constantly getting laid. That's not going to happen for the vast majority of people, unless you work in porn or something. You're not going to constantly get laid. So, you have to.
Dude, tension
those
release
chemicals.
and
You have to
masturbation
release
is
those
my
chemicals,
metaphor
sure.
for everything, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like being free to say whatever crazy shit that you want to say actually relieves you from doing that stupid shit. It's like video games, right? You play video games and you get to like emulate all these things that like are in our genes to do: kill people, blow shit up, be violent.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes you want to do it less because you have an outlet for those like evolutionary things.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a part of being
Yeah,
human.
you can't. Obviously, there's a lot of things in modern society we can't just go about and do to relieve certain tensions or certain feelings or chemical reactions we're having. So we have to find other outs from.
Mhm.
That's where people watch movies, play video games, jerk off, whatever, whatever it may be. Watch porn.
Yeah, and
I
think
like
that's the
horror.
same.
I like horror, but like for some people, horror is their way of getting rid of their murderous thoughts or
Yeah.
violent thoughts. For me, it's not really that. I just like I told you before, I really like the creativity of it, and I like the morbid fascination. I mean, I'm big into sci-fi as well, which is something that's again very creative.
Yeah.
And maybe we can have another discussion on that another time and do a sci-fi one.
Yeah, we can. Because this is new to me, so I'm just like absorbing.
But yeah,
shit,
yeah.
Right?
Sci-fi's gone through a lot of changes too, and I think it's in a bad place now too, as well as horror. But that's all movies in general, I guess, except for superhero movies, because that's what's taking up all the budgets.
I'm all
But I love it.
about
I
the
can't say I
Avengers.
hate it. I love superheroes.
I
I
love
grew
that
up on
shit
it.
too.
Love comic books, and I grew up in my life as a kid imagining these worlds being on the big screen, being on TV, and little by little getting that throughout my life. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Cartoons, movies, TV series, blowing up now. I just go out and kill people and listen to Danzig. If I get shot. I knew you were a murderer. You're like Ethan. Dan, have you seen Tokyo Gore Police? I watched it. It was good. He put a YouTube video for us to react live to this 30-second breakdown of this movie. I don't know if you want to do that, but it's I opened it up and it's Tokyo Gore Police, Japanese movie. This is Tokyo Gore Police is happening a lot in Japanese films now. Like that kind of film was super exaggerated, super gory, actiony kind of shit.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but that's not all I want to see. They've been really slacking on the actual horror movie side. I guess they lost interest in it. Which is Japan in general. They go back and forth with horror. They have, back in the black and white eras, they would have horror, and then it disappeared for a while, and then it came back in the 80s and then it disappeared for a bit again, came back in the 2000s. But they go back and forth with wanting it and not wanting it.
All right, a few more minutes. So
anything else? Any more questions?
Yeah, motherfuckers. Ask whatever you want now.
Ask away, guys.
So
everybody's stumped on this. We
now,
did talk about a lot.
What I do here now is I'll stop streaming on OBS, but it'll still leave the Discord call open, right?
Yeah. But when you stop streaming, you got to give it a few seconds. It won't stop right away.
Okay.
Winds down.
Yeah,
it'll tell you when it stops. Or I could just tell you by watching, right?
Yeah, that's true too.
I don't know. But we'll see. There's some awesome horror shots out there. Have you seen Lights Out? Yeah, Lights Out was good. Is that the one with the blind dude? That was pretty good. But I wouldn't call that horror at all. I didn't see anything horror about it. It's more of a thriller. There really isn't many horror aspects to it at all. But it's this movie, Amy. It's really good. It was by the guy who remade. Wasn't supposed to be a remake, but ended up being a remake of The Evil Dead. He did a great job. So then he came out with this other movie because he got put on the map, and I liked it. And it's about these guys, this group that go to rob a house of this blind guy. But I think the blind guy is incapable of shit, but he's actually like an Green Beret Marine dude or something, like Special Forces dude. Mm-hmm. So even though he's blind, he's still fully fucking capable of whooping ass and killing people and shit. Yeah. So they break into his house and basically he starts fucking, turning them into the victim.
Oh, what did I start doing here?
This is where I don't really see it as a horror because the people that he's after are really criminals. So I don't really care that he's going after them. There's not really much of a horror to it. I call it roughing up the suspect. Yeah, exactly. Right hand equals good cop, left hand equals bad cop. Yeah, that's basically
fucked up again. I started checking Discord, and that's what I just broadcasted on my shit. Like an idiot.
Yeah, I just saw you reading the comments.
What a dummy.
It's all right. This is why we're doing stuff like this. So
it'll be easier once I get a second monitor. It'll be easier. Right?
And it's also a good way. This is also a good way that we could check this out and see what you can do and not do that'll show up and stuff. Where it goes wrong. Have you seen this Lights Out 2013? Isn't that what I was just talking about? Or is this a different movie? Oh no, this is a different one. No, I haven't seen this. Oh yeah, there was another horror movie called Lights Out. Maybe that's not the one with the blind guy. What was the one with the blind guy called? Was that called Lights Out? That might have not been called Lights Out. I could have been wrong about that completely. There was a horror movie that came out called Lights Out. A lot of people told me it was shitty, so I didn't watch it. So I don't know. But maybe I should. What you guys think? There's a movie on Netflix. It's kind of low budget, but it's really good. It's called The Void.
Yeah.
That's another one of those maybe cultish cosmic horror kind of movies. Really good. I enjoyed it. This is where horror is now. If you want to see really good horror that's classic type horror, the way it's meant to be, you will catch them in low budget formats on Netflix or something. You're not going to see it in theaters. There was a really good one with Barbara Crampton, which is one of my favorite scream queens. She was in those H.P. Lovecraft movies I was talking about in the 80s.
I love that.
But yeah, somebody came out with a movie that was an homage to Italian horror recently, and it's like a really low budget movie, but he did a great job. I can't remember what it's called. It's called like What We Are or Who We Are, something like that. I'll tell you 1 second. Let me look.
Okay.
So everybody knows.
And then I'm gonna end this shit.
And then we'll end it, because we went way past.
Oh, it doesn't matter about the time. I just really have to
Okay.
pee and get my laundry, and then I gotta go.
Oh, go pee.
I'll wait. I'll wait.
Why are you
Just a
waiting
few
for that?
minutes. It's all good, y'all.
We are still here. That's what it's. So if you guys want to catch it, it might still be on Netflix. She was also in another movie recently called Beyond the Gates. That was good. If you want any more horror recommendations, you can go to my channel and look at my really older videos where I first started, and I used to review horror. Those are good. Those I have some good ones. Holidays, good anthology movie with each horror being based on a different holiday. Short stories within the movie, and they're each based on a different holiday. And Kevin Smith does one too, and it's really.
I loved his movie Red.
Red State.
Red State.
Red State. Yeah, we didn't mention Kevin Smith either, and I love his
he makes horror movies.
and he does now. He's made 2 so
shit.
far.
So
He made
Red
3
State?
so far, and he's got another one coming out. There was Red State. There was Tusk, which was kind of a parody on Human Centipede. It was
Okay.
fucking great movie. Then he did one with his daughter and Johnny Depp's daughter, which spun off of Tusk. Forgot what that one's called. That one's more for teen girls. It's meant to be silly, you know. It was actually he
said that, yeah.
specifically made it for teen girls, so a lot of people bitched about the movie. I think it was a fun movie, not a great movie, but it's fun to watch at least once. But now he's making True North, which is the next installment of that, because it's going to be a trilogy of horror movies based in Canada.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was Tusk was the first one, then was the one with his daughter as the main character, and then there's True North come up. And I think it has to do with a killer moose or something like that.
Nice.
Which is fun. Like his horror movies aren't to be taken too seriously. That's why, like Red State was more of a serious horror. The rest are not to be taken too seriously, but
Yeah.
I like them. I enjoy them very much.
Okay. So I'll have to watch some more Kevin
There you
Smith too.
Yeah.
All right, we'll have to do an interview, or sorry, the Alfie interview. Oh my god, the Alfie horror interview show, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. Maybe if you're interested in this, do like a little series, maybe like once a month or once every 2 weeks, where we watch a horror movie and then we'll discuss it.
Yeah, we so should do that. I'm down
that
for
would be cool. I would be interested in that. I think I like the concept that you haven't seen many movies,
Yeah,
so I
you'll
can
get to
introduce
take
you
me
to
through a
stuff
lot. Yeah.
and then see your take on it, you know. Where a lot of these movies I've seen so many times, I know so much about it, you don't know much about it. It's like a good contrast for
Yeah.
see what these movies are like to a person for the first viewing and what a person after viewing it many times.
Okay, cool. I'm down.
Cool.
Well, we'll figure out another time to do this. You should probably yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun though.
Not bad.
Now I'm gonna have to like go through this and make a list of the movies that I need to see that are just horror specific. But I'd like to see the Italian shit or any of the other outlandish kind of stuff with you anyway. It'd be more fun.
Yeah. Well, we delved into Suspiria, so maybe like if you want next week or the week after that, maybe we should talk about that movie. And then we'll watch another movie and go into that. You know?
Yeah. And we have to watch some more It's Always Sunny too.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Also, I have an idea.
Yeah.
Really quick.
Go ahead.
Night of the Living Dead is public domain. We should now that you can stream OBS, we can stream us watching the movie and talking about it as we watch it.
Please, that would be amazing.
I think so. I think that'd be awesome, right?
Yeah,
maybe
I'm
we could find some
down.
other public domain movies we could do that with later on. You know, there's
yeah.
not many, but we could figure it out.
Yes, we should definitely.
That sounds like a good idea. I don't know if you guys let us know if you think that sounds cool.
Who gives a fuck about that? We'll just.
Well, we
anyway.
don't care what you think, but we'll do it anyway. But let us know if
yeah.
it sounds cool, just so we know how excited you guys are for it.
It'll be fun. Okay, Alfie,
Yeah,
it was
it'll be
nice
fun.
talking to you. I'm
Okay.
gonna go pee and get my laundry.
You too. I love you.
Love you. Have a good day. I'll talk
Fun
to you
times. Bye.
soon. Bye.